London, 1965.
Yay!
Hello, time once again for Type 40 Live, materialising here with your live stream Doctor Who magazine show across any and all view screens in real time on Rumble, X, YouTube and on Facebook too. We're always in front of a live chat too, full of friends, fans and companions just like you. As ever, we're bringing you a couple of hours worth of concentrated, unabashed geekiness. So bring your comments on the future, the present, and the past of the Whoniverse. 61 years, 15 incarnations of the Doctor, and heaven knows what else. All's fair in Type 40. Yeah, back to the past. The console room of the original TARDIS, in fact, from Peter Brahatschke all the way back in 1963. I think that's fitting. It seems a little emptier this time as we gather again here for Type 40 Live. I'm Dan Hadley, Birmingham's King of the Geeks, and we'll find out who you are, I'm sure, in a moment or two. Please remember, if you're watching over there in the Facebook group, you've got to hit that little blue link, and that will let Facebook know who you are, and Facebook tells StreamYard, StreamYard tells us. We all get on first name terms for all of this and all of that that's to come as well. Make yourselves comfortable, everyone. Let's bring them in. It's not going to be all smiles this time. I'm sure you'll work out why, but you're going to get the same blend of news, views, rants, raves, nostalgia, and everything in between. And we want your comments, as always. Of course we do. Making up the squad this time. Let's see who we've got. It's like picking, you know what? You know when you get a packet of roses, like a box of roses, chocolates or Quality Street, and you think, which one should I go for first? That's a bit like choosing which one of the panel to bring in first. I think I'll go for the minty green Ian David Diaz, the Mega Geek. How about that?
Hello.
Hello, mate. You're looking somewhat spearminty this evening?
Yeah, it was clean, so I put it on. Do you know what I mean? So
it's a start. It helps if it's clean, doesn't it?
Exactly.
It's not essential. We're men. Fair enough. Good to see you, mate. How's your week been?
It's been all right. I've been just working. That's all I seem to do, really. Working, trying to keep the wolves away from the door and stuff. The usual rubbish, isn't it? So been watching a bit of TV, indeed. You know, as little as I can. Well, just as little as I can, because I can't stand the majority of crap that's on TV. But, you know, I'm here. I'm ready to go.
You want to watch that, you know. They used to say that watching too much TV made you go cross-eyed.
Yeah, it's too late for me.
It rots your brain. It rots your brain.
Too late for me.
Too late. That's the sort of thing they did used to say way back in the 60s, at the time the original TARDIS was on screen, of course. I think we've generally turned out okay. Well, our generation has. I'm not too sure about Charlotte Shields.
He's in trouble.
I'm meant to be one of the good ones, aren't I, from my generation?
Hello, good evening. That's my way of welcoming you.
I've had a lot worse, so I'll take it.
Usually from me, yeah.
Yes.
How are you?
Hello, everybody. Good.
She's still smiling.
Well, we had a really good weekend, which we'll get on to later. So that sort of made me have a good week now because it's sort of made it go a bit quicker.
Why do you want it to go quicker?
Because it's getting near to summer. So why do you think I want it to go quicker?
Yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense. I guess I don't know.
Hoping that the weather will take a turn back.
Garbage. I haven't got a jumper on. Look, I've actually got like a t-shirt. So Cardi's like middle ground.
What's on the t-shirt? What's on the t-shirt, Charlotte?
Oh, you won't see. It's got like it's. Oh, you can't see. It's white. It's like a painting.
All right. Okay.
It's a really pale picture, so it will not show up on this camera. Right, okay, I can guarantee that.
Gotcha.
There we go. We were wondering. Well, that's from the subtle to the not so subtle, dressed as natty as ever, but the contrast has definitely gone up. The jacket that Simon Horton is wearing. Good evening, Simon.
Well, good evening. I've decided to come as the purple one, seeing as we're talking about roses or Quality Street. I'm the purple one.
Everybody's favourite.
We better move on from that. Let's just
say no more, mate. How are you?
I'm good. Like Charlotte, I'm still buzzing after the weekend, which we will come into. But good to be here. All good. All good. Sorry. Yeah. Do you want to go out and come back in again?
I said there'd still be gags, didn't I? My God.
I'm happy. It's your own fault.
I think I can't really argue against that, can I? Help me out, John Yulden. Raise the tone a little.
I'm sorry, I can't do that.
What have you come on us then, John?
I'm the stale one left in the box and nobody wants to eat.
No. Do you know what John is? John is the one that from last year you didn't realise was still in the box.
No, he's the purple. Nobody eats the purple one.
No, I'm sorry, I'm having purple tonight, Ian.
He left that in the sun too long.
Or the toffee one. You can't. When you eat the toffee one, it just gets stuck to your teeth. So you don't really want to eat that one.
Bloody hell! You know, this is not going to do any wonders for our reputation as the nastiest Doctor Who podcast around. We're here arguing about sweets. Shouldn't we be saying something outrageous?
We're so grumpy and we just always miserable, aren't we? That's what it is.
All I can say is the weekend was great, and blimey, they thought the Rolling Stones partied hard. You haven't seen nothing till they started.
We ice creamed hard, didn't we? Let's face it.
We ice creamed hard. Yeah, we did.
Hard. Yeah,
we did. Very hard.
Yeah, definitely.
We did, and making up the panel. He's certain not to say anything inappropriate whatsoever. As Tasmania's favourite son, well, certainly it's our favourite Tasmania's favourite son, Mr. Matt Pott.
Hello. They don't like me down here.
Don't they?
I'm their favourite.
Why not? You tell us all about it, mate. What have they done to you? What's going on?
Oh no, they're just a bit. It's gone a bit crazy down here now.
I know what it is, Matt. You're the hard toffee, aren't you? Nobody likes the hard
toffee. Takes a long time to devour.
I've got a hard toffee with a soft centre.
Brilliant!
Bless his soul. Well, we have a show lined up which is bound to get to anybody's soft-centered. I was going to say something. Yeah, I won't say it. Okay, rewind. Look, everybody, please join in with your comments as always, whichever platform that you're watching us on. This time, watching or listening, even while you're doing something else, that's allowed as well. We're looking forward to getting stuck into all of your comments. Of course we are. Okay, so where and what? First, I hear you cry. Where else? Where else but this, really? As I'm sure you've all already seen earlier this week, an irreplaceable original Doctor Who cast member, I'm certain you adored as much as we do, passed away. William Russell was 99 years of age and had played Ian Chesterton in seasons 1 and 2 of Doctor Who across 16 stories and 77 episodes opposite the original Doctor, William Hartnell. Ian was Susan's science teacher, of course, whisked off into space and time with his colleague Barbara, meeting and now and again fighting with historical figures, uncanny alien beings, and whatever else came his way, barely stopping to straighten the old school tie through the whole thing. William Russell was in fact the stage name of Russell Enoch, who was born in Sunderland in 1924. He'd attended school in Wolverhampton, believe it or not, and spent his national service in the Royal Air Force, organising their entertainments. On leaving Oxford University, Russ, as he was known to his friends and family, went into repertory theatre, and that was just the beginning of a career on the stage and in TV and film that lasted nearly 8 decades. But it's as Mr. Chesterton of Coal Hill School, who miraculously, eventually found his way back to a life in London, 1965, he'll be most widely remembered. It's hardly a great shock. A man of these years, of 99 years, passes away, I suppose you could say, but somehow we hope they'll go on forever regardless, don't we, Simon?
Of course we do. He's one of those people that he was 99. He was nearly 100, bless him. He nearly got to the big 100. And I think with all of these stars of Doctor Who, these beloved stars of the early years of the classic series, we just kind of think that they are going to go on forever. I think, in all honesty, sort of fans feel a little bit sort of proprietorial towards them almost. You treat them, they're almost like family. We've spent so much time with them through the years, through the decades, in some cases, watching them on television, that you get to know them, then meeting them at conventions, seeing them in interviews on DVD, documentaries. You just get to know these people very, very well. And so you just kind of think that they are going to be around forever. And
it evolves, doesn't it? It evolves. And even before you see their actual TV stories, I think we get used to the names that are attached to this brand. Charlotte, we don't have to have been in the 60s, do we?
No, because Ian sort of, as was always mentioned a lot in the show, in even long after he'd left it. And I think that showed how much of a legacy and how beloved his character was. And I think the brilliant thing is about classic, obviously, there's always a new generation discovering it and finding these stories. And I think Ian, the whole trio were brilliantly written. And I think they all brought something different, which was lovely. Ian, for me, he was that sort of bit more stubborn, sort of opposing force to the Doctor. He was the one who would call the Doctor out and get him to stop and think. And I think that was needed for the first Doctor. That was needed for the first Doctor to sort of slowly start to warm up a bit. And Ian was a big part of that.
I hadn't thought of that. It was a very precise relationship. But then again, you could say they all were, John. Each dynamic between each of the 4 regulars back then. Obviously, Doctor Who was put together, wasn't it, by a kind of focus group, a group of individuals to create a specific kind of drama to fill a specific slot in the schedules. Casting it, we know that it took quite a long time. Getting William Russell at the time was a bit of a coup as well, because he'd done movies and all manner of other things too.
I think
the show seems unimaginable without him, doesn't it?
I think in those days they had a template, didn't they? So if you're going to cast someone that's an elderly gentleman, you always cast someone that's quite young to obviously do all the heavy lifting, but also to attract that age. And then you got the 3, right? So you got William, and you got the Doctor, who's a man of age. Then you got the young woman balance, and then you got the teenager. So they're trying to attract that kind of audience.
It was very carefully thought through, wasn't it? They planned this meticulously, and it was a great dynamic. The way it worked on screen, it was a brilliant dynamic. You're right, Dan, in that up until this point, William Russell, or Russell Enoch, his real name was Russell Enoch, interestingly, up until Doctor Who, Nearest Damage, he most of his stuff was as Russell Enoch. and he changed it. Believe it or not, get this, he changed it as a result of Norman Wisdom, who got a bit grumpy. He was in a film with Norman Wisdom, and Norman Wisdom asked him to change his name. This was while filming One Good Turn, and he objected. Norman Wisdom objected to the surname Enoch because it reminded him of a rival of his, who's also called Enoch, believe it or not. And so Russell Enoch, bless him, changed his name to William Russell, and that's why he's William Russell, not Russell Enoch. We've got Norman Wisdom to thank for that. But
I tell you what, we hear all these horror stories, don't we, about modern celebrities who only insist on eating sort of orange Smarties. Getting another actor to change their name for you, John, that strikes me as taking the piss.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've been trying to change my name to Ron Bolden, haven't you? You know,
You wouldn't have any of it, would you?
No, not at all.
But Norman Wisdom was huge at that moment
massive.
in time, wasn't he? He was like one of the biggest stars, and those are the days when England used to make feature films and successful ones at that.
Yeah.
So when he said, you know, when he says something, I guess people listen. And but the thing is, I got the impression that William didn't like that name anyway. He wouldn't have changed it if he liked it. If he well, I don't know. I'm guessing.
He's changed his name backwards and forwards through his career. He went back to Russell Enoch, and then he went back to William Russell. So he had a reasonably healthy relationship, I think, with his name.
He was a jobbing actor, wasn't he? Around about that time. The Norman Wisdom films. He was in. I think he was in a couple of horrors, wasn't he? A couple of horror films as well. So yeah, it was.
But his big thing that he was most known for in the early days was as Sir Lancelot, the title character in the Adventures of Sir Lancelot. There we go. Look at that. I mean, wow!
Had a pipe.
Yeah, they had pipes in those days.
This was a huge show at the time, wasn't it? Very expensive. The first UK show that was ever filmed in colour. And so they had to get the right actor because the idea was to sell it abroad, wasn't it? And William Russell, he'd been in movies, hadn't he? He'd played extras in most things as a very, very young man. But this was his big break, in a sense, wasn't it? What year was this, Simon?
1956. It ran for a couple of years. And apparently, you're right, Dan, it was made for the overseas market as much as anything, which is why it was made in colour. And it was a massive, massive hit in America. And apparently, William Russell rode down Fifth Avenue, dressed as he is there, on his horse, in full regalia, you know, to a full sort of ticker tape parade. And the show was an enormous success over in the US rather. So that's just lovely to think that he would have had, you know, there's not many of us can have that degree of success of riding down Fifth Avenue on a horse in full regalia and having people cheering for you.
You have that pipe on him as well.
I'd like to be
Have any of you ever seen this series? Because I never have.
I have. Well, obviously not when it was released, obviously. But I've seen it. But also, I mean, in those days, the organization wanted to sell to other countries. They needed for it to be a success. I mean, I think Roger Moore what did Roger Moore make after this one? Ivanhoe. Yeah. Ivanhoe. Yeah. So they were desperate. They were definitely focusing for the American market because that was the biggest market at the time. Still is, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously, I suppose you could say at that time with the series as well, they knew what they wanted of the lead character, and I think we could have that debate till Kingdom Come about whether the original Doctor was an anti-hero or not, Matt. But the idea was that they wanted a more commonplace hero to sort of balance it out, didn't they? So a young, broad-shouldered guy who could take on the bad guys.
Like my first experience with Ian Chesterton was through the Doctor Who movie. So when
Roy Castle,
which was a totally different version to what was. I mean, I didn't get to see the original, the first actual episode, An Unearthly Child, till 1993 for the 30th anniversary.
Wow!
They showed it here. So it was very strange to see this a straight man virtually, you know.
Well, that's the irony of it, because
around, you know,
that's the irony of it, Matt. Because Roy Castle plays Ian Chesterton, just like Norman Wisdom.
Yes, very much so. Actually, you're right. Yes, he does.
Whereas Ian on screen is an all-action man, as I say. You often see like dirt or sweat on his face. His tie may be a little bit crooked, but generally he keeps it together. doesn't he? Here's a picture of William Russell there with Derek Ware training, running through the routine, the fight routine for an episode of Doctor Who. I think that was for the Crusade.
Looks like the Crusade. I would.
Is that the stunt arranger?
Yeah.
What's he wearing?
Shirt and tie, obviously. It was 1964.
Hours, doesn't it? Judo chop.
Yeah.
But another thing that I quite liked, and when Ian sort of had a bit of a cheeky sense of humor about him. Like in certain episodes, he would definitely almost be like laughing at what was going on and just being like, I know this is probably really dangerous, but I'm just going to have fun. Like, I'm just gonna... Which one was it when they were in Roman times?
The Romans.
That's it. I didn't know if it was called the Romans.
Yeah.
And that whole bit in the villa, I adore with him because he's just sat there having his grapes.
Having a laugh.
Having like, look at me. He's just enjoying it. And I'm like, that's what people would do realistically, I think, if they went back in time.
William Russell.
Sorry, Dan. I was going to say, do you know, for the last few weeks, I've watched the first two stories, Unearthly Child and the Daleks, and it's funny. Before this happened, I actually had changed myself to thinking Ian is my favourite companion because those two stories, he's the one who's the heroic one. He's the one who takes charge, and I always remember, he's saying to Barbara, "Believe we're going to get home. Just believe we're going to get home." So he's trying to give her hope that they're going to find their way back. And he's such a good character. I mean, the Daleks, he's the one who keeps them going. The Doctor's being devious at this point, and it's just a fantastic performance. And that's why watching it again, I was like, you know what? I chop and change over the years, but at the moment, Ian is my favourite companion.
I chop and change.
I think the thing is with all three of those early companions, but talking about William Russell, they're beautifully understated performances. We've got to remember that Doctor Who in the 60s was still being made when television was made like theatre. And so people tended to talk very loudly as though they were talking to the audience. And actually, Doctor Who doesn't do that. You watch those performances from Jacqueline Hill and William Russell, and they're very understated, they're very underplayed, they're very level, they're very measured. And I always find that so watchable because they're not over the top performances at all. And I think the thing you get with William Russell as Ian is you just get absolute solidity of performance. He's bang on the money every time, from going into the TARDIS at the beginning, towards the end of An Unearthly Child, that first episode, and the incredulity and the shock, and then, as you say, Charlotte, it's some humor in the Romans, and then again in the Daleks. One of my favorite sequences in the Daleks is when they're all really ill from the radiation poisoning, and again they just underplayed all of them so beautifully, and William Russell is there as well, carrying
dynamic, wasn't it?
Brilliant dynamic, Ian. Brilliant.
It was very different because I think they were playing the Doctor as the mad scientist when it first started, and Ian Chesterton was the guy to do the heavy lifting, the fighting and the rolling around and stuff like that.
And he was also the voice of. I think he was also the voice of reason as well.
Yeah. Yes, he was.
So it was a lot of focus on him. So it's very, very different to the Doctor that we know now. Do you know what I mean? So,
well, there was the focus on him, Ian. You're right. In that the Doctor, as you say, was the bumbling mad scientist, and actually, as we know, in those early years, was portrayed as quite grumpy to an extent, and he wasn't the character that you as an audience member were meant to identify with. Ironically, it's completely reversed now in later years.
So, Simon, if you could say that Barbara was kind of the heart of the show, was Ian the head?
Oh, I'd say so, totally. He undoubtedly he was the brains, and he was the one that brought the logic to situations, and he worked it through with the Doctor. So yeah, I think absolutely that's a totally fair point.
And you're right, Simon, because when you look back and you watch the Daleks, that scene that I love so much when they're struggling with the radiation sickness is where they know effectively it's got to be Susan that goes back to the TARDIS. And she's scared. The way he plays it with her, and he basically says straight there, straight back, and he knows it's dangerous, but she's the only one physically that can do it. It's not
Yeah.
the Doctor that makes that decision. It's Ian that makes the call.
Yes.
But then you
Yeah,
get the impression that they were pushing everybody aside because he was just considered a mad scientist and everybody else was the stars. That's when I saw those episodes. That's what I got from it, and it's what you call it. It's understandable because that's what they used to do in the 60s. They used to do that a lot in drama TV shows where it was always the handsome guy that was the focus. But you got to admit, the Doctor was really devious. He'd lie to them to get to a place, and then trouble would start. You know what I mean?
And also, what I found interesting with Ian, another dynamic, which is with the Doctor and Susan, is obviously the Doctor's the grandfather, and he was very much for me written as a very uptight, grumpy grandfather at times. Whereas Ian, in sometimes, was quite the protective father, I felt, to Susan.
Yeah, totally.
He would be quite worried. He would be the one who would be like, is she going to be okay? And the Doctor would be, she'd be fat, like very hand off it, like sort of,
and the argument,
stop worrying sort of attitude.
And the argument that Ian and the Doctor have in The Edge of Destruction, the two-parter, he's really going for the Doctor in that because he is defending the others against the Doctor. That's the thing with him. He was able to play it in so many different ways, and yet it always stayed true to the character. I just found him always just entertaining and enjoyable to watch. He's just it's a performance that is difficult to dislike. If you know what I mean. You know, so many performances these days are divisive. They're sort of Marmite. You love them or you loathe them. This performance, and the same with Barbara and Susan, it's just a difficult performance to dislike because it's just so gentle and pleasant and easy to watch.
Something I notice or have noticed over the years, and that seems, I don't know if it's unfair, but it's right that we resist it, I think, is just like with Ben and Polly or Jamie and Zoe, Nissa and Tegan, we tend to lump them in together as if they're a yin and yang. They're almost inseparable, and yet the characters are so distinctive. And whilst I agree with you, they were clearly working together very, very closely, William Russell and Jacqueline Hill, each of the characters does seem quite different, and that's why when they're not together it's just as interesting as when they are. They're close but not too close. They're not inseparable, in fact. And I love this character, and I just like you, John. I sort of waver between who I like, who I appreciate the most as an actor as well. The more I notice, and I think the more delicate the performance, the longer it takes for some of the nuances to really hit home when you revisit the material, or maybe just when you get a bit older yourself and you think, okay, this was what this guy was doing, this is who this character is, and this is what this fantastic actor is bringing to the surface out of material that, let's be honest, can sometimes be a little thin.
I get the impression that they wanted Ian to be the front man for the show. But then I might, correct me if I'm wrong, Simon.
Sort of.
And Dan, right? But then the kids gravitated more towards the Doctor. And
the Doctor was the magical, enigmatic character, wasn't he? So they always wanted the kids to be fascinated, like like when you look at a light bulb or something like that. It's like this fascination. But the component parts of the cast are there to do other things, aren't they? It's all very, very precise.
Do you know what I love when I watched An Unearthly Child back a few weeks ago? It's that scene where there's always makes you laugh when you hear some people say, "Oh, the Doctor's about love." The Doctor picks up a rock and he's going to kill a caveman.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So there's no love there. The Doctor is ruthless. He's calculating, what do I need to do to get back to the TARDIS? This guy's reducing our chances of surviving. I'm going to kill him. That's what he's going to do. And then you get to that point where Ian sees it, and he just gives him a fantastic look. And it's almost like a look of saying, I kind of know what you're planning. I'm not sure I trust you. And that builds over those.
That's what I mean.
Stories.
That's what they couldn't have got that.
Ian, they? So,
they couldn't have wrung that drama out of a younger actor, could they? For example, they'd have gone with a sort of a John and Gillian dynamic from out of the TV comic, like cast a couple of 18, 19-year-olds. It wouldn't have worked because the older male would not have been able to recognise that in the Doctor himself. I mean, it's a strange. It must have been a strange turn of events for William Russell himself. I mean, it's hard, obviously, because we didn't know the man. We can't know what his hopes were for his career. Headlining the Lancelot series like that and having all that publicity around him, Simon International kind of appeal and showcase for him. And then a few years later, he's playing in a far, far smaller show in black and white. But it started out for him in movies. He was a crewman in a sort of 1953 naval drama called Glory at Sea. So he's playing little things like that. He was in a Saint movie, one of those film noir films from the 1950s. I can't remember who played the Saint. They changed the actors in those, didn't they? So that was all in the run up to this. And he appeared in sort of magazines like this. The magazine Blighty, Ian, on the August the 15th, 1953, says a personal appearance for the ladies, of course, Russell Enoch, a young actor with a brilliant future before him. Russell is steadily reaching the top as a star of the British screen. In Intimate Relations, he plays, that sounds like something on Netflix now, doesn't it? He plays the young romantic lead opposite the Swedish star Elsie Albin? Something like that. Sorry, Elsie. Just so you could see where he was going. He was going for the kind of... He was being pushed in the direction of the young film idol, wasn't he? And ends up in character parts. And that's sort of where he remained for a steady career that lasted decades. Just before Doctor Who, he was in The Great Escape with the likes of David McCallum and James Garner and Steve McQueen. Big movie. Quite a small part, but he was in it. He did plenty of other TV work too, particularly after Doctor Who. He's in stuff like Casualty and Van der Valk, Heartbeat, Robin of Sherwood, Blackadder, Poirot, Crown Court always gets a mention, doesn't it? Shoestring, Boone, you name it. The list just goes on and on for this guy. A steady career. I can't imagine he was ever out of work. That's how it looks.
Yeah. He's, as I said, he was a jobbing actor. At one point, he had the height of the fame where, on that TV show, but then after that, he was just jobbing actor, working left, right, and center. That's the best thing you can be really in the UK as an actor, just a jobbing actor, and he was. So, God bless him.
They were good character parts as well, I noticed, Matt. He didn't play exaggerated characters as such, and he wasn't one for wearing great disguises in the way that Tom Baker did as Captain Redbeard Rum in Blackadder 2, for example. Very exaggerated character.
I remember him in Blackadder playing a little bit.
That's right. Well, he was laid on a bed, wasn't he, with a big grey beard and and a big hat. And he was playing a dying old man, wasn't he?
He was a bit wizened, yes.
He was, but that was quite a rarity for him. I think here he's in a couple of movie roles there. In Superman in 1979, where he played an elder of Krypton.
In Superman, I keep forgetting that.
Yeah, was he in the bit? Did they cut this bit out?
No.
Well, to be fair, they cut lots out of the original Superman film, so there probably is cut material of him. I would imagine there is of everybody else.
But I think he does. I think he does make a brief appearance, doesn't he? He's there. He's somewhere in that scene
with Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
We seem to forget how young the British film industry was around about that time. So not even Ian knew where his trajectory was going. All he cared about is working. Do you know what I mean? And that's what he did.
Yeah, and he was lucky.
He was very lucky.
Kept on getting the work.
Had various ups and downs. I know there was a high-profile stint on Coronation Street in the early 1990s where, because my nan always watched that show, John, and I used to go and visit her, and it would always be on. And I remember one day doing a double take because I never paid any attention to it. It wasn't for me at all, that show. I did a double take when I recognised the voice, but I looked at the screen and this white-haired guy chatting up Rita in the cabin. It was William Russell.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and it makes you cool then, doesn't it? You sort of think, they got a Doctor Who person in there. I'm going to watch this now. That's it. It gets you excited.
And he did have a very distinctive voice. You're right, Dan. It was a very distinctive voice. You recognise the voice before you recognise the face often. It's just one of those. He got gravitas. He'd got a stillness about him. That's what I liked in all of the parts he played. There was just a stillness and a truth in what he did. He wasn't overacting. He wasn't trying too hard. It was clearly just came naturally to him, and so it comes across as effortless and thus believable. And that's all you need.
You couldn't even describe it as stoicism. His sort of stock trade. It was sort of dependable. Really,
dependable. It's a perfect word, Dan. Absolutely perfect.
Did anybody ever get to meet him? Anybody on the panel?
Yeah. Lovely guy, very friendly.
Did you really,
John?
I met him a few years back at Bournemouth Comic Con. He was down for the convention, and it was great. So it was just on my doorstep. But I was amazed that how busy he was. And this just speaks to how popular he is. Because considering it's a show that goes back to '63, the queue was big for him, and he was just very, very friendly. Took time to speak to people. It was an absolute joy. And when you look back sometimes and you think, oh, I wish I'd met that person, I'm just glad that I got to meet him.
I'm as green as my T-shirt now hearing that story, because I'd have loved to have met William Russell. I really would.
I only got to meet him once. I got to meet him at Hooverville. There we go, Hooverville. Back in, so it would have been, I can't remember what year Hooverville 9 was, but Hooverville. And I got my copy of An Unearthly Child signed. There it is.
No. Simon.
Along with Carol Ann Ford. There it is. Bless him.
Great
he was sitting next to Carol Ann Ford as I sort of went through the queue with him, and she signed the book first, and she passed it over to William.
Really?
And I was there with my other half, who's also Simon, and so he couldn't quite understand, why are the two Simons of you? Are you brothers or something? And Caroline Ford said, no, they're just good friends, William. They're just good friends. And bless him. And he just sort of not. He's like, all right, okay, I've got it now. And you're right, John. He was just one of the sweetest men you could possibly have. Everybody should have him as their granddad. He was just a beautiful, beautiful person with a lovely character. Gorgeous man.
Talking about the weekend quickly, Dan, did you notice though that Simon seems to have hidden all his Doctor Who stuff from us? Just so we couldn't steal anything that was signed.
That's what it is, John. That's what it is.
We'll have to come around to that later on. Speaking of Carol Ann Ford, I'm sure you will not be surprised to learn that there have been plenty of tributes to William Russell since his passing was announced just a couple of days ago. Too many to mention, in fact, but I think it would be criminal not to look at this. This is what Carol Ann Ford had to say. Russ was such a dear, lovely man, an outstanding actor who was dedicated to his craft, but with a wonderful sense of humour and a permanent twinkle in his eye. He was always looking out for me when I played Susan. I wanted to leap over things, fight the villains, and do more action, and he got so worried that I would get hurt.
Bless. Oh, I mean, look at that photo. It's just a lovely photo. They clearly loved working together. And it just shows in that, and that it is one of the joys of Doctor Who that just keeps on giving. We lose these people, we lose these greats from the show, and yet it's the fact that they're so missed and they're so loved by the fans and by the people who worked with them. It somehow gives, I don't know, Doctor Who is a very unique thing. There's no two ways about it.
Did the BBC do a tribute to him or something, or did they?
There's some publicity on the social medias, I believe, but I wouldn't imagine.
It wasn't mentioned on the news, on the radio news, anything like that.
Do you think they'll put it on the episode at the weekend?
I'd be surprised. I'd like to think they would, John. I doubt if they will.
Maybe in time when it's appropriate. I don't know. Carol Ann Ford went on to say, I cherished working with him and the many reunions we had. Russ had such a rich and full life. Television, films, theatre, the lot. And quite rightly received such warmth and affection.
Well, he did, because he was just such a nice bloke. I mean, he just was. It's a cliche. We're always saying, "Oh, these people are lovely." When you get to meet them, lovely. But genuinely, and I know John will agree here, he just was an absolutely adorable human being. I can still remember at Hooverville when he was up on stage being interviewed. and his phone went off in the middle
Was
of the
that
interview.
him? I was going to say, was it him with the phone? I remember.
Yeah, it was him with the mobile phone going off in the middle. And he answered the phone, and it was his wife, and he literally said, "I'm sorry, can I talk to you? I'm on stage being interviewed." And it just brought the house down, because it was one of those things that anybody else would have been thrown completely and would have been embarrassed and flustered and wouldn't have known what to do. But he just carried it brilliantly, and it literally brought the house down. It was the highlight of the day. I'll never forget it. It was priceless, absolutely priceless.
Right.
But speaking of Doctor Who fans, let's go and conduct an experiment of our own. Check in with the live chat there across X, Rumble, YouTube, and on Facebook, and see what some of the comments and the tributes we've been given so far to William Russell are there in the live chat. Thank you, everybody, for your patience there, your indulgence, while we rattle on there about an irreplaceable Doctor Who legend. Who've we got? Hail, everyone, from Lord Thoth right in there. Good to see you, Lord Thoth. Happy to have you back, as we are Ashvin, too. He's there. Hello to all. Always love tuning into Type 40. Well, thank you. It's lovely to be loved. Matthew Butterfield says, evening all.
Evening
and
all.
we have a hi all. Rest in peace, William Russell.
Hello,
from
Doug.
Doug Sims.
Yeah.
There, Matt.
Yeah.
Darren M's in as well,
Hello, Darren.
as is Heretic and Psychics Beats. Good to have you all back. Lots of regulars. Rob Alexander's in too. Greetings, fellow Who fans. It's time for Type 40, folks. Good man. Another stout fellow. We've got Tom in from T-Dwarf Productions. Hi, everyone. We can still be fans of the 60s Doctor Who. We insist on it, Tom. We insist on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Tom absolutely loves 60s Doctor Who, and he wasn't but a twinkle in his mum's eye when the 60s Doctor Who's on, but he absolutely loves it. So well done, Tom.
CTC's in as well. Good evening, all. Rest in peace, William Russell, you legend.
Yeah, absolute legend.
Another legend here, Enigmatic Joker. The legend says hello, all. And another rest in peace, William Russell. So, yeah, it's a lot of people saying a lot of the same things, lots of affection. Yeah. Cinnamon says here, crazy. We were only discussing the other day about the loss of John Pertwee, and now we've lost Ian.
Yeah, we were talking about it last week, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, weren't we, in the diary? And yeah, here we are a week later, and this was not what we expected to be.
Did they say what he died of, or was it just old age?
Well, he'd been suffering with an illness for quite a long period of time.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So I did hear about this a little while ago, but it's not out there, I think, and out of respect for the privacy of the family. Cheryl's in. Gallifrey Angel says, can I just say happy birthday to Colin Baker for Saturday the 8th of June. Colin has been my lifeline for as long as I can remember. Hope you've checked out our big 80th birthday party we threw for Colin here on the channel last year, Cheryl. That was a laugh, wasn't it?
That was a lot of fun, that one.
Hi all from Stephen Braddock. Evening, everyone, from Adrian James. Hello, Adrian. Connor Medlin. Yes, sorry, Connor. He's in. Hello, Type 40 and chat. Sad we lose arguably the show's first hero.
I don't think it's even arguable. I would agree, Connor. I think undoubtedly he's the show's first hero.
Yeah. Without question.
Doctor was not the hero at that point when Ian first appeared on screen before the Doctor did.
Stephen Braddock describes him as the coolest school teacher ever. He had that quality in a sense, hadn't he?
He did.
He was cool. He wasn't your scary school teacher. He's the kind of school teacher that we all wanted. That's for sure.
Yes, the one you could get on with.
Yeah, he was a caring school teacher. A lot of school teachers wouldn't be bothered to go and check out where Susan.
You're quite right.
Just be glad to get the little sods out the gates.
Lock doors and go.
He cared. He cared. So cared too much.
He certainly did.
Oh God, and Mattio's in as well. Love you guys. We love you, Mattio.
Mattio, we love you too.
Happy to have you back. Garbage. Matthew Butterfield, everybody else. Peter Harrington's in as well, and Vanessa Law says Simon is always handsomely dressed.
Yeah, unfortunately, look at us. Yeah.
That's the slobs, the scumbags in,
Slobs.
Peter Harrington's a fan of a purple one. Purple and green. Well, if yours is purple and green, mate, I think you'll go down the GP's first thing in the morning. Hi, all from Stephen Bradley. How's your grass, Simon? Asks Paul.
It's doing very, very well, and I'm doing lots and lots of touching of it. That's for sure. I've taken the advice, and I'm well touching that grass.
See, we're into the controversial topics again here at Type 40 Live, or whatever they're going to ban us, hadn't they? Outright ban us for discussing Quality Street, because it's really rattled the rabbi's cage. The Quality Street hard toffee is the best one, he says in capital letters.
Worse. I'm going to send you all of my gold hard toffees. I hate them.
I'm not surprised the rabbi likes.
out to Israel. Sam simply says irreplaceable. I couldn't agree more.
Totally, Sam. Totally.
Seems like a lovely fella, according to John. He was.
Yeah, he was.
He was true gent, a true gent.
Chesterfield says Neville Watkins.
That's what the doctor called him. Yeah, Chesterfield.
That was one of the lovely things, the way the doctor always got his name wrong. It's lovely, that was.
There were several of those, weren't there, throughout the 16 stories. Matt, how many do you remember? I can only really remember Chesterfield.
I
Chesterton
I can't remember any.
Chesterton, I think, was one, Chatterton, Super John says, Chatterton, I think Chatterton was one. And Adrian James just flashing at that message saying that Adrian James is from Wolverhampton. Yeah, Dan is quite right when he mentioned earlier that, William Russell Russell Enoch was born in Sunderland, but he lived in Wolverhampton and Solihull, both in the West Midlands, both not a million miles away from you and I, Dan. And,
I had no idea. Wolverhampton's very close to me, really, only 9 miles or so up the road. Daryl Joyce is in.
Hello,
fabulous
Daryl.
artist, Daryl Joyce. Evening all. Sad week with the loss of such a marvellous actor and connection to the very start of our favourite series.
Yeah. A real.
It shouldn't be sad that he's gone. He should be happy that he had a great life and he's part of Doctor Who, and all those things should be celebrated.
And shall I tell you the other thing that I'm very, very happy about, Ian, and that's that he managed to make it back into Doctor Who.
Yes.
Back in 2022. I know he's only in briefly, but he makes it into the Power of the Doctor.
Unfortunately, it was the wrong Doctor he was
into. But there we go. Look at
that. But it was a good scene. I think
it was a good scene.
You all said that at the time.
Yeah,
whatever you thought of that episode, that little scene with Ian was pretty much universally loved. I think.
And that was a good idea. That sequence as well. It was a really good idea throughout those seasons of Doctor Who.
Yeah. It was an absolutely brilliant idea. And let's not forget that because of this, he won, William Russell won a Guinness World Record.
Oh, of course.
Because of it's the longest gap between TV appearances of the same character. So it was exactly 57 years and 120 days between his last appearance in The Chase and then his appearance in The Power of the Doctor. 57 years, 120 days. Guinness World Records gave him the award for it. He's there. So he is literally, this man is a record breaker. And I just think that's wonderful.
Do you know what's weird, Simon?
Say again?
You know what's weird, Simon? That he's a record breaker and Roy Castle played him in the movie.
It all tracks back to Roy Castle, everybody.
And the fact that you're called Ian, it's another little connection. It's just too spooky, all this stuff. It's too spooky.
I mean, the beauty of this is that, obviously the Power of the Doctor was an absolute car crash, but the beauty of this scene is that it works as a kind of coda because she, who will not be named, isn't in it. You can sort of snip this away from the main body, the other nastiness. You can sort of snip this away, and you've got this sort of kind of a nice little statement on Doctor Who without the Doctor even being there. I mean, there are a couple of characters that were sort of tied to some stories that starred somebody playing somebody else, but generally speaking, the ethos around this and that moment is absolutely, it's kind of universal. It's something that's very, very lasting, and. I didn't expect him to be there. There are some people who were there that I'd heard they were going to be there for a scene like this, but I had no idea that William Russell was going to be there. So that was a really lovely surprise. I don't know if he understood what it was even for, maybe because it was recorded so far in advance. But the fact that he was there is extraordinary.
Yeah, and I remember some people saying to me that how was he in it because you know, he had that comment in Sarah Jane Adventures about him and Ian and Barbara never aging. But then I just took it that maybe he went on further adventures and did age up after that. So your mind quickly fills in the blanks, doesn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. It still intrigues me, you know, about the end of the chase, how he and Barbara landed back on Earth, and I just still think that the police would be knocking on his door and his and Barbara's door saying, "Excuse me, we've got a few questions about you. You were last seen with a young girl disappearing into a junkyard down an alleyway, and the young girl has still not been seen. Where
and you haven't changed at all.
We'd just like to take you down to the station for a few questions, sir, if you don't mind." I just think it's so brilliant the way he just appears back in modern world. It
was a different time then in those days.
Yeah, of course it was.
So even if this was real, they probably wouldn't have questioned him at all, I guess.
But,
I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Stephen Braddock here in the live chat says, when I heard of his passing, I toasted him and watched An Unearthly Child that very same night. Absolute classic watch. I would imagine a lot of people watched some classic Doctor Who starring William Russell that evening.
Yeah, perfect, Stephen. There's nothing finer than An Unearthly Child for all four of them. That first episode in particular is utterly sublime.
Peter Harrington remembers a submarine movie that he was in, but he can't think of the name. There's quite a list of credits.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of movies.
Bear with me, Peter. I'm going to see if I can find that one for you. While we're on it.
Woodhouse122 says Sir Lancelot is a great series. Talking Pictures have aired it on TV a good few years ago, and it was definitely on DVD for a while. I've never seen. I'll have to get round to it at some point. Crimpling Doubloon says, I've seen The Adventures of Sir Lancelot again on Talking Pictures. It's like seeing extra adventures of Ian Chesterton back in time, sword in hand. I agree. A Cinnamon Toast Crunch has got the beginning box set featuring those first three stories. You got it as a kid? Oh my God! Sorry.
You know, as John mentioned that scene with the Doctor and the Rock. I mean, those days, you know, you would never get that today, would you? For kids, that was a show for kids, and the Doctor's going to kill someone with a rock. For God's sake, you know. When you think about it, it's very strange, isn't it?
Yeah, very odd.
Times change, I guess. Yeah.
It is wild, absolutely wild. Shah's in the live chat. Just got home, so I'm watching on the big screen. You brave girl.
Hey!
Happy to have you there, even if it's just in spirit, Shah. I'll catch up with you in a couple of days. Happy Type 40, lads and lasses. Melanie Weston Investigates said he was not in Robin of Sherwood. I'm sure he was. He was in an episode called The Pretender, but I can't remember who he played. But you probably wouldn't have noticed that he was there. That was with Jason Connery as Robin, The Pretender. I'm a bit of a fan of Robin of Sherwood. Yeah,
a blonde one.
Big fan of that show. William Russell was in an episode of Van der Valk that also featured Patrick Troughton, although they didn't appear in the same scene. Oh, that would have annoyed the hell out of me, Matt. You know, I'd have wanted them to meet.
He played the Duke of Gloucester in. He was the Duke of Gloucester in Robin of Sherwood. Yeah,
but Patrick Troughton starred in a few kids shows himself, didn't he? During the 70s. Yeah. There you go.
It's alive, says Peter Harrington. It is indeed. I haven't really thought about my favourite companion. I don't know who I don't like as a companion, says Garbage. I must say most of them I do like. Danny Pink. Ryan. Who's Ryan? Very different to the current Doctor, Honey, says Heretic. Completely different.
Something about a thumb comes to mind.
There you go. And
the companions humanized the Doctor. He was a cold alien to begin with, says Matthew Pounder. He wasn't. And so by William Russell sort of reflecting, kind of, I wouldn't describe the character as dull, but very much an average, dependable British chap. Yeah.
Yeah, solid.
I can't imagine Doctor Who without him.
He was a hero.
But in many ways, again, this is a testament to William Russell's acting ability, because he does. You're right, Dan. On paper, Ian is quite a dull character, and William Russell really imbues him with a good character, with likability, with approachability, with some depth, and so that's, as I say, credit to his acting ability. He leaps off the page as a result.
Nice cup of tea. Nice cup of Rosie Lee.
I was wondering why he's holding that. It looks like a toy there in his hand. A toy mace.
Yeah, it's a break between shooting that show, wasn't it? So,
it's probably Sir Lancelot again, is it? I'm guessing maybe.
It must have been. Yeah, his TV career ended back full circle with Doctor Who. His last part on television was as Harry, the security guard, in the immensely popular, I think that's probably understating it, docudrama An Adventure in Space and Time from 2013. And there he is, as Adrian James points out. I remember William Russell cameoed in the docudrama. Yes, of course he did. And kind of a memorable character as well. I think that we knew it was him, but nobody else would have known it was him. And so therefore it's perfectly okay, Yeah,
quite right too. No, it was a lovely little cameo, as you say. We will all know, and nobody else will, and that's part of the fun of it. It's the sort of in joke, isn't it? It's a nod for the fans, that one.
It is. Rest in peace, William Russell says, problem being, good to see you there, mate. We have Vanessa's in as well.
It's a shame he didn't come back as a cameo in an actual episode. Do you know what I mean?
Well, in proper Doctor Who, I completely agree. But like I said, at least you can slip that bit away from the power of the Doctor if you're so inclined. I liked Who much better when the Doctor and companion weren't in love, says Kelly. No, but that's the thing. I mean, it's debatable. Were Ian and Barbara in love? But because of the way it was written, because the actors played everything down, we'll never truly it's left to our imagination.
It's good it's just good that there's no friggin' sex mention whatsoever in the whole show. It's like no lovey-dovey stuff,
I think it's stuff. I think it's again going back.
So do I.
Going back to when they get home in the chase, those scenes of Ian and Barbara, it's clear they are in love. I think, to me, depends on how you do it. I mean, this is the beauty of that sort of golden era of Doctor Who. It's up to you. You make your own mind up. You're not told what to think. It's up to you. Now, I see that absolutely they are in love, and they're going straight off to Gretna Green the next morning to get married. I'm in no doubt about that at all.
The thing is that they've been through such traumatic events, and things like that all can only bring you closer, especially to one another. Especially when
totally.
I can believe they were in love.
Yeah, definitely. I think you could read it as incredibly close friends or love. I think those were both very apt readings.
You could read it either way.
I reckon that they were kicking themselves they didn't take any antiques.
I thought you were going to say acid then. Blimey, it's a bit dark. We've got a comment here from...
I was just trying to get that time-space telegraph out of the TARDIS door before I left. The lounge.
We've got a comment here from Dr. Once in the live chat on YouTube who says he was in an episode of Whodunit with Pertwee, though he played the murdered man, so wasn't actually with John Pertwee.
Yeah, but you remember that show Whodunit?
Oh, absolutely.
I've seen snippets of it, but... It was before my time. I'd love to get. I think it's out on DVD.
The episode with Edward Woodward. I've got those.
Oh, of course, yeah. Was it Inspector Brown? Inspector Brown, was it?
I just love the prizes for those were actually props from the TV show.
William Russell was in it very early on, back in 1974. He was in Whodunit. Captain Alexander Anderson was who he played in Whodunit.
Isn't that the bloke who hosts Pointless, Alexander Anderson?
Close, but no cigar.
Yeah.
Nearly there. I mean, yes, what a career. Yeah, understandably, there are a sea of tributes out there to William Russell. We can't possibly go through them all. We'd be here for hours and hours on end. But we do have this one from Russell T. Davies. Russell said, "What a sad loss. A fine, nimble, witty, heartfelt actor who absolutely sold the truth of those early years." That's kind of what you were saying, wasn't it, Simon? Before that, he'd been Sir Lancelot. It's often undersold what a star booking he was for Doctor Who. I bumped into him on a train in 2018. I was starstruck. He spoke with so much pride and joy about his son, Alfred Enoch, who I'd seen in King Lear. Absolutely lovely man. A fine, long life. Well done, sir. Well played. That was from Russell T. Davies this week on Instagram.
Only travels first class.
I wouldn't you love? He's one of those people I would have loved to have bumped into on a train and just had a chat with. And I know he would have
bumped
been
into Russell. That's for sure.
No,
I mean,
I just know he would have been a lovely gentleman, and he'd have sat down, had a cup of British Rail tea with you. That's for sure. Bless him.
The two Russells, strangely enough, I get the impression that William Russell has no idea who that man is.
No, he looks like he's just sort of like, I'll look at the camera for you. Like that.
He's saying to his wife, "It's another fan, darling."
It's another weird tall bloke coming to say hello to me. It's fine.
You're muted, Ian. You're muted, Ian.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I'm just saying, in those days, they used to have little cabins, didn't they? When you used to go on the train, and you could meet. I met Richard O'Sullivan once when I was on the train.
Did you really?
In there. Yeah, I got on the train and I sat there, and I suddenly realised it was Richard O'Sullivan right in front of me. Hang
on a minute.
Yeah.
When you say you met him,
yeah,
he wasn't wearing a black hat with a handkerchief over his face, holding a pistol, was he? On a horse?
No.
Oh,
no.
You're all right then.
Yeah, no. As I said, in those days, you used little cabins, didn't they, on the train? Do you remember the little rooms that you said? Yeah. And I met him in there. He was a nice guy. So yeah, there's a lot of people you meet on the train, and stars and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not surprised Russell met him on the train. In those days, the trains were very weird, weren't they? You can open the door while the train's moving and all that shit. So,
you were telling us that the other day as well. Yeah. It's a fabulous picture. Of course, Russell mentions Alfred Enoch there. Alfred Enoch was William Russell's, is William Russell's son. William Russell had several children. He'd been married once before, then got married again in the mid-80s. And, fathered a child in his mid-60s. I think he was 64, 65. Wow. And Alfred Enoch is now an actor of some note. This is Alfred Enoch in Foundation, which is currently on Apple. The Apple channel, Apple Studios, big sci-fi show, which I've heard nothing but good things about. Previously, he'd been in the Harry Potter films. I think he played somebody called Theo. He's been in several shows.
In Harry Potter.
He was the lead who took over a medical show, which originally starred Jodie Whittaker. What was it called now? Play somebody pretend to be a doctor, so he took over that show. Something like that, yeah. I think it was called Trust Me. So he was in that. And but there he is with his parents. In fact, William Russell's last film role was a cameo part in a movie that headlined his son, Alfred Enoch. So that must have been a bit of a dream come true for him. He was obviously immensely proud. So yes, he's that guy, everybody that you've seen everywhere. It does make you wonder. This is a British actor in his mid-30s. You kind of wonder if Russell's seen him in theatre, why he wasn't on his radar for Doctor Who. Is he a little bit
doctorish there, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Come on. He would have been.
He can act. I think he's a little bit too masculine. Dare I say it. But maybe next time, Russell. Maybe next time. Yeah, that's so he's the one.
Not Russell's type, I don't think.
He's the guy. Like most Doctor Who companions, he's been immortalised in plastic. I don't know if William Russell was ever asked to sign one of these. This is the character options figure of Ian Chesterton, flanked by the Vord, which is a very nasty thing to have happen to you.
Especially when one of them's got something in its hand.
Yeah, that's what I was just looking at.
Yeah. Yes, it was called Trust Me, according to Peter Harrington. Yeah, understandably, I'd sort of wipe that one from my brain, everyone.
On their feet.
They had
flippers.
That's how the Vord were. They did have flippers. Have you ever seen the Keys of Maris where one of them literally trips over his flipper? He does actually trip over his flipper. Well,
that's the magic of classic Doctor Who, everybody. I mean, for me, William Russell was somebody that I initially saw in lots of grainy black and white pictures in Doctor Who Weekly when I was a really small boy, Simon. You must remember. And they were the same pictures you saw over and over again. I didn't really know who he was or who he played or where or why. I couldn't possibly. But eventually I did see him in the Five Faces of Doctor Who season when they repeated the whole of the first story stripped across the week. But that was all I saw, again, for another 10, 12 years until the Daleks came out on VHS. So that would have been about 89, wasn't it? 88, 89. It's about 7 or 8 years. And I gradually got to know that character and got to know that actor, started to look out for him in other things or spot him in things that I'd already seen. But obviously now he's inseparable from the Doctor Who legend, which I'm not sure if he would have found that, frustrating. What do you think? He never really said, did he?
What, that he would be remembered for?
Mostly for Doctor Who, do you think? Because he'd done so many things.
Yeah, but I don't think he'd find that frustrating in slightest, simply because he did, as you say, Dan, he did so many things. He was a hugely successful actor, as Ian has said. He was a jobbing actor. He was always working. But he was such a charming guy that, no, I don't think there would be any problem at all. He would be delighted to think that he was remembered for Doctor Who. I mean, no doubt about that at all. And so with any actor, I think all any actor wants is to be remembered for something. Yeah. And the fact that he was remembered for what has gone on to be the longest running sci-fi show in the world, and one of the longest running shows in the world, no, I think he'd be absolutely made up to think that people would remember him for that, and he would be associated. And you're right, Dan, in that in every single obituary that I read this week in any of the papers, everyone, it's Doctor Who first, front and centre. It's Doctor Who. That's what they talk about to begin with. But no, I don't think he would be remotely disappointed.
Yeah, because like Patrick Troughton, being a character actor, that was his bread and butter, wasn't he? Going from role to role to role. Correct. I suppose looking back, when you look back on a career, it's very different from when you're in the dead heat of it, and you just want the next role, John. You want to make sure you stay in employment. You want to sell your flexibility, don't you? But maybe when it gets to the close and you've retired, I think, yeah, you had mostly retired. At least you're remembered for something that made an impact on generation to generation.
I'll always say this: that if you're an actor, the best thing to be is as a character actor. You get the work, but also you don't get pestered in the street, if you know what I mean. Yes. So that's the best thing you can do, really. But I mean, a lot of people want to be famous these days, but actors like these, they were old school, and all they wanted to do was work. They weren't really interested in the fame at all. So, and also he was very grateful to be part of Doctor Who.
Yes.
Unlike some actors connected to a franchise. Who regrets it. That's good on him.
Well, Carol Ann Ford was typecast, wasn't she?
Yeah, very much so. And William Russell wasn't. He was lucky that he wasn't typecast, and he did go on to, as Dan said, a huge career. And I think, to be famous as a character actor is just the icing on the cake. And the fact that he was still getting invited to conventions or to screenings at the BFI, all that kind of stuff. I just know that he would be delighted with his connection with Doctor Who. I mean, no doubt.
I think he was. Sorry, go ahead.
That's right. I was also just going to say that it shows just what a fantastic actor he was and what he put into the role, because you look at future companions in the show's history, and being honest, a lot of them are forgettable, naming no names. He isn't. He is that one that, regardless if you've only seen the story once, you know who Ian is. You know that character, and that's all credit to him as the superb actor that he was and how he portrayed that character.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, he was the first, so he's never going to be forgotten.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, let us know your memories. If you got to meet William Russell, just like John Yulden and Simon Horton have. Oh, God, I'm so jealous. If you got to meet him, let us know there in the comments section, or simply your favourite moments from William Russell's time on Doctor Who, or any of those other roles that we mentioned, come to think of it. For now, though, good night, William Russell Enoch, with all our love, respect and gratitude for entertaining us then and now, and probably forever. Obviously, our thoughts are with his friends and family, and keep the comments coming, everyone.
Hi guys, and welcome to Type 40.
As you said, Doctor Who continues. Of course, it continues with another episode due this weekend as part of season 1 of all new Doctor Who. This is the 6th in the run, just coming up. More on that in a moment, but it'll be in all the places that you're used to getting it now. So that's across the iPLAYER, Disney Plus as well globally. We'll be talking some more about this in a few moments. What sort of impact is it all making? Heaven only knows. I can't see a great deal of traction around it. I hate to say, and we're only 6 weeks in. What's coming up next? Heaven only knows. You know what, Ian? When I see images like this, I think back to the wise words of my friend Ian David Diaz. We shall see, everybody. We shall see. So yes, keep tuned.
Yeah.
Is that a hairdryer?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Well,
that.
Yeah, it's a gun. I think it's a gun.
Yeah, that really worries me. I have a horrible feeling there'll be some awful, cheap, nasty double entendre made about that gun at some point on the weekend. About that weapon.
Before Russell T didn't like guns.
Oh my, that's a big
He
one.
wanted to take guns away from Doctor Who.
Yeah, that's a good point. You can't have guns in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Maybe it is a hairdryer then.
Russell T Davies having double standards. Never.
Oh, you can tell this is Type 40 Live controversies, cups and Jaffa cakes. Everybody, keep the comments coming. More of this, please. And if you'd like more of us, you can head over to our home feed at type40.podbean.com. You can get all the episodes of the podcast itself there, reviews, previews, interviews, geek outs, and deep dives, stretching all throughout the history of Doctor Who there, or across all major podcatchers as well. Where next? I think that's a nice word to leave that on. Time for a break, I think, to take in some of the warmth and wisdom of the man himself, the late William Russell. Here he is on BSB's Doctor Who Weekend. Way back. He was around 64, 65 years old at this point. So he just, strange enough, just fathered a child. We'll be back in a moment or two. Check it out.
Fabulous piece of television history there as the Daleks made their dramatic debut. And two of the Doctor's companions, Russell Enoch and Carol Ann Ford, are with us again now. Had either of you any idea of the impact that story would have on the viewers? Carol?
Absolutely none, no. And when we saw these strange creatures, we thought they were terribly funny.
The Daleks?
Yes, we didn't think they were at all frightening, wasn't it?
What about you then, Russell?
Yes, I think because, of course, they didn't have their tops on when we saw them. So we saw the actors sitting in the Daleks, peddling them around the studio. So that was very comic.
It wouldn't be very frightening, really, would it?
But when they put the top on and filmed it, it was
the voice,
scary.
Wasn't it?
And it was the combination of the voice, Peter's voice, with the Daleks. Yes, I think those two things added it up.
And the Daleks were supposed to be the thing that all of a sudden brought all this attention to Doctor Who. Did you both find that briefly?
Oh, yeah. That's very certainly true. Absolutely true. Yes, I mean, I can remember going out and buying an Evening Standard and finding a cartoon of General de Gaulle as a Dalek.
Oh, really?
And when I saw that, I came in to see Bill and said, well,
that's
it.
If that doesn't say it, nothing does. Thanks.
You're watching or listening to, or maybe both, Type 40 Live here for the weekend. Speaking of which, yes, Doctor Who continues this coming Friday, Saturday with a 6th brand new episode. Since we last spoke, the ratings have come in, everybody. More ratings. I know how much you love the ratings. We have to look at this. More overnights, more consolidated figures. Simon, you've got clenched teeth, mate.
I've got clenched teeth.
Is it that tense? Is it that tense? I mean, the good news is, look at Ncuti Gatwa. As always, he's still smiling. I'm not sure at all what the general feeling at the BBC must be over the lay of the land as it stands this last month or so. It's not been going brilliantly. It's not set the world alight. It's on the surface, look, this isn't great. I maintain it's not disastrous. At least it's consistent, but it's not great. We've got a final consolidated figure for 73 yards come in since we last spoke. That's gone up from 2.6 million to 4.06. So it's around the same rise as before. And we now have that overnight figure too for Dot and Bubble, last weekend's episode, which represents, again, a bit of a drop back to 2.12 million. So these are the latest statistics. Let's start with the consolidated figures. That does seem to be very consistent, Simon, the people who are catching up with it over the week across whatever screen they watch it on.
Yeah, it's generally about 1.5 million that are catching up with it. I mean, yeah, okay, it's 4.06 is the highest rated episode so far this season. But it's just disastrous, isn't it? And to read...
Did you notice that the BBC and the Radio Times in particular have been pushing that as a major selling point? Highest figure this year, which I can understand up to a point, but...
The Radio Times was literally laughable the way they were selling it as a real fantastic... This was a fantastic figure, according to the Radio Times. Just incredible.
See, that's where it falls down, because you can see why they're proud of it going up, but it's far from fantastic, Charlotte.
Well, the problem is it would have been a better selling point if they would have then either kept at the overnight for Dot and Bubble at 2.6 or just dropped a little bit. But then all the good work that I honestly think Boom did for that 73 yards, and we sort of hinted at this last week. It's definitely not had a good impact, that episode, because they've gone straight back down again. And then we've all been saying now, because of these ratings, every drop is actually more deadly. It's actually more impactful because they were so small to begin with. And the problem is, I don't think Dot and Bubble is going to book that trend of a drop again. Let's put it that way. From the reactions I've seen to that.
I mean, I'll put this disclaimer out there and say, and I don't want to make excuses for them. The weather was very, very nice over the weekend, and Matt Pottle scoff. It was very, very nice over the weekend, and the simple fact of the matter is, and that's not an excuse for these figures, but I tell you what, this proves. Look, if you I was saying this to somebody the other day. If you show Doctor Who between the middle of September, or any new drama between the middle of September and, say, the middle of May, largely speaking, it's going to be a pretty level playing field, because the weather in Britain is pretty much the same throughout the entire time. But premiering an expensive, brand new show at this high profile in this quarter of the year, it is, in Britain, going to affect the ratings. So I believe that that's going to account for some of the drop this last weekend, because, as I say, there was a lot of positivity and conversation around 73 yards. Do I think that could make up for nearly 500,000 people? You know what? The weather was that nice. Maybe.
I think I really do think you're being very optimistic, Dan. I
haven't. I tell you what, I haven't seen. I haven't seen this. I haven't seen the statistic. Well, I haven't seen the statistic, Matt, of what the audience share was for that night of people who were in front of the TV.
Yeah, good point.
I mean, I can't, for anybody who's not in Britain, I can see why you may find this difficult to believe, but the weather does impact whether we are in front of the TV or not.
It does, but if people were actually wanting to watch Doctor Who, they'd go and watch it on catch-up during the week, and they're not doing that either.
Well, this is why when it comes to Dot and Bubble, obviously, because that's where I'm talking about the drop is, when we get the consolidated figure, if that's still as it's been, Simon, the 1.4 million, then obviously I'm not correct, because there's not more people catching up with it. I believe that the catch-up figure will increase slightly for Dot and Bubble.
I don't think so.
Not above the one.
What makes you think that? Because of the quality of the episode, or you simply believe that the downward trend is unavoidable? What do you think?
I think now we've got quite a few episode datas to look at. Nothing is grabbing the attention of the viewing public with these episodes. They're not
73 yards did. 73 yards did though, Charlotte.
73 yards did, but it's still only just about cracked 4 million.
It's
still only cracked 4 million. If that was a knockout episode, that should have got easy 4.5 something million on the consolidated. So to me, because nothing is grabbing, and also we're properly in the midpoint.
See,
of the
I don't know. I look at that though, see, Charlotte, and I see a consolidated figure that went up by 500,000.
But the problem is,
Boom and 73 yards.
My point is, if it needs to be more than that on your consolidated to show
it all
that
needs
this
to be
show is catching fire in the public attention.
The problem is that the consolidated figure for 73 yards only adds on the same figure again. Adds on the 1.5 million again. So people are not watching on catch up during the week, having heard that 73 yards was a brilliant episode. The only reason 73 yards has gone up is because for some bizarre reason people enjoyed Boom, and so people tuned in for 73 yards having enjoyed Boom. But as I say, the viewing
and also Simon, word of mouth, just like the weather can send people away from their televisions, word of mouth can actually get people in front of the TV, can't it?
That's what I'm saying. But it did correct, and it did get a few 500,000 people back in front of the televisions for the next episode. But the problem for 73 yards, but as I say, people were not watching on catch up. So the word hadn't gone round that it was a brilliant that 73 yards was a brilliant episode. So I think Boom was the episode that worked. Sorry, that's Lenny.
Oh yes, yeah.
Lenny agrees. As I say, 73. Boom was the episode that worked bizarrely for people, whereas I think then people tuning in for 73 yards, having been lured in by Boom, actually discovered that 73 yards was, I think, not a good episode. I genuinely don't think the public.
No, but whether we think it was good or not, it had got. I wouldn't say got the nation talking, but it had definitely made an impact on the cultural landscape in a way that Boom hadn't. People were talking about it, were discussing its not its themes as such, but certainly discussing the viewing experience, John, and not in a negative way as well.
Yeah, I mean, we talked before. We talked last week, didn't we, about the beginning of it when it was in the pub. I was actually into it, and then I sort of switched off after that because I wasn't enjoying.
I'm not talking about but I'm not talking about the actual content of the episode itself. Though. Yeah. I'm talking about the impact afterwards and how whether people will say, okay, I'll make a mental note to watch that next week, and obviously they may have done had the weather not been quite. And this is what I mean. Will people have? I don't know if the iPlayer has got that thing where you can sort of save it, where you can add something to a playlist anymore. But I do wonder. I think I'm not expecting some massive increase on Dot and Bubble. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not trying to make excuses for this show. But I know cultural impact when I see it. 73 yards had that.
I think regardless of whatever we discuss from that side of it, we all know that it hasn't grabbed the general viewing public. But also, I would say worldwide, from people I've spoken to, there's been very little talk of it, like in the States and elsewhere, since it's been airing. They did the original promotional, but it's gone very, very quiet. So they were pushing it for an international audience.
It's so hard. It's so hard to judge. It really is because it.
The other thing, the other thing we've got to bear in mind.
It's steady. It's steady on Disney Plus. Everything that I see, it's steadily there on Disney Plus. But you're quite right. It's not setting anything alight. And I do wonder, without, again, just like we said a couple of weeks ago, without knowing what their hopes are for the brand, for the content, it's almost impossible to judge whoever we speak to, whether they're for or against. It's kind of by the by. I think.
Here's the problem. We are literally one drop away on your overnights to be in the 1 million bracket for your overnights.
It's right on the cusp, isn't it?
That just will take one drop on your overnights. And then look at the consolidated. That doesn't need many drops either to be the top end of 3 million. And that's my point here. There's a leakage. It's dropping. We haven't reached a bottom yet. We haven't reached possible bottom here.
And I think
there's still episodes to go. That's
I honestly have no idea, Simon, whether it's going to go up, up or down. But I do think that this is a crucial week. I think this particular figure, this consolidated figure on Dot and Bubble, will be the one that kind of seals the fate of this particular run.
Because you could be right. think you sadly won't be right. I don't think it'll put more than the 1.4, 1.5 million up.
Well, I'm speculating. I've got no desire.
No, of course. I think it's very unlikely that it will, because I honestly think Dot and Bubble will not have set the world on fire again, and people will not be talking about it and going back to the show. I mean, and what we've got to remember at this point, even the 4.06 for 73 yards, even that as the highest figure so far for this series, it's lower than every one but one Jodie Whittaker episode. And we knew that the Jodie Whittaker series era was absolutely killing the brand. And these figures are lower than every single Jodie Whittaker episode except one. So this is, I don't care what anybody says, it is catastrophic. It is disastrous.
It is pitiful. It is pitiful when you look at it like this.
Let's not forget as well that these are back on Saturday night. The Jodie Whittaker years were all on Sundays, when we knew was not doing the viewing figures any good. So it simply should be doing better than this. It's just, there's no way to spin these figures other than disastrous.
And another problem is, like, we can talk about the episode and like quality and all that completely. I agree. But we've also, Dot and Bubble, you can't deny we had politics back in the episode again.
I mean, that was going to be my final point, really. People have been talking about, as you say, Charlotte, people have still been talking about it this week. But it's, for all that, I think that the conversation around 73 yards was largely upbeat, because even if people didn't understand it, they were fascinated by it. With this, it's all that negative publicity that we're used to seeing around genre shows in particular, where it's the central message of it is being hammered home to people, and it's generated adverse publicity, which now that could have a kind of car crash effect where people can't almost bear to look away. Was it really that bad? Was it really that on the nose? It could be that, or it could simply be people thinking, you know what, that's the last straw for me. I think I'll give it a miss and
that's my
cancel.
point. You've got what was in the episode. You've got Russell's comments that we saw on Unleashed.
Yeah, I saw that too.
That's at this point, the show cannot afford another politicized, let's either have people for us or against us moment.
It can't be divisive.
Russell T Davies used to be
what he's created.
Russell T Davies used to be the best showman in British TV, a fantastic ringmaster for the entire brand, Matt. He seems to have even lost that golden touch as well. He seems to never fail to say the wrong things to the wrong people.
All I can say is this show stinks, and the ratings actually mirror the episodes, as far as I'm concerned.
I just can't understand it, Matt, because you know, we just Doctor Who is there to entertain people. It isn't there to hit them over the head with a political stick. I don't understand what Davis thinks people are tuning into Doctor Who.
This is what they're arguing, isn't it?
It's always been political, and it's always been queer. It's always been this. It's always been that. Strange enough, I thought when I was 6, I could have sworn I was watching an adventure serial for the whole family in prime time. I must have imagined my entire childhood, John.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't think when I was 10 I was watching the adventures of the time traveling twerker. I watched the sci-fi show, you know. I must
have been backward. Despite being in the top sets for everything and a great student, I must have been thick as pig shit.
You said a while ago, before it came back, and you said with what had happened under the Jodie Whittaker era, they really had to swing for the fences and go for it with the marketing, the PR, everything. So if you take aside for a second what they've put into the episodes, the marketing and the publicity campaign has been absolutely shocking. And it is, I'm not surprised, like Matt said, you know, I haven't enjoyed the episodes, but they've effectively been telling a core element of their audience to get lost and to do that famous thing that Simon does and touch grass, you know.
Well, yeah, Gatswa told me to do it, and that's what I'm doing. And he was spot on. He said, what was it? He said, "Dear God, please go and touch grass if you're not enjoying it." And that's exactly what I'm doing. And I have now. I bailed at 73 yards. I know what Dot and Bubble is about, and I've seen bits of it. So I am speaking, having seen bits of it, and having seen the comments in Unleashed from Russell T Davies that you've mentioned, Charlotte. So I'm speaking with authority. I am absolutely out here. I am never, ever watching another second of RTD Doctor Who while he is still in charge. I'm so angry about this episode. How dare? Well, I am angry. How dare they put out an episode that is just telling us that all white people are racists? I
was just wishing...
And we're privileged.
So I was just wishing that I'd got that sound effect from Family Fortunes there. I haven't got it.
That's me. That is me, Dan. I am really, really angry about it. How dare we do this? How dare Russell basically put something up there that says all white people are racist?
Yeah, I would. I mean, without, obviously, I don't want to review the episode here because we're not doing that on the podcast. But I would say that watching the episode itself and then experiencing the nonsense that Russell T Davies is saying afterwards, the highly divisive rhetoric, it's I would say a completely different experience, but a different experience. And I can't wait to review this episode in particular because I think there's a lot in there that isn't getting aired, mostly because Russell T Davies has kind of stepped on his rake there. Jack Thursby says, do you know what would keep people from going outside on a sunny day? Really great Doctor Who. Only some people, Jack. I mean, obviously you're right up to a point, but we are living in 2024. We have smart boxes. We have playlists. People don't, generally speaking, staying for telly anymore.
But like I say, it's not, the weather hasn't been great this week. So if that theory is correct, everybody will watch on catch up this week, and so the figure will go up drastically for the iPlayer views, and let's see what happens. Yeah,
the problem being says I don't think it would get, if it were in the middle of the winter, it would get much more, if any. It would have done. I believe it would have done. Obviously we'll never know. I believe really quite strongly that it would have. I don't think it. Again, I don't think it would have. It would have set the schedules alight. I want to make myself clear. I'm not making excuses for the show. I think, generally speaking, it's a kind of if the show was back to the kind of health that it was in before, it would probably be quite a negligible amount. But when you're getting down to high-profile shows, getting
even
2.5
million would help.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. You are right.
That's the problem. Like I said, it's such a small margin now. And like you said this as well, Dan, because it's 8 episodes, if you have enough episodes in your run which don't get received well, it's going to have a really bad effect.
So what's the bottoming out, do you all think then? What do you think is that final bit where it's just the remainder of the viewers are, what you say, the hardcore viewers who love the show, and just the remainder of an audience that has been tuning in and has invested in it? There
are habitual watchers, absolutely. There's a hardcore audience. I think there are more habitual watchers than we know. I think there's still that thing with the British public where they, as I say regularly, they really want to watch this show. Doctor Who's the kind of show that the audience has to be driven away from because it is such a part of British culture, as you know, John. It's something that generation upon generation will flock back to. You have to try. I think you have to cock up spectacularly to drive people away, and obviously that was unprecedented and stark, the drop during the Whittaker years. This drop isn't so stark, but it's still very, very it's concerning for a show that's got this much riding on it. This next couple of years for the show, they're all important. I don't think that's overstating the matter at all.
I would also say as well, because I don't know what the figures are on, Unleashed, is that a red button thing? Is that
it's on BBC Three?
It's on 3 as well.
Do we know what the figures are for that? Because I've got a feeling that won't be on season 2. I think that'll be quite.
No, they're definitely making. They're definitely yeah. I know somebody who's working on it now. In fact, so that's definitely. I think that's kind of part of the deal, and there's a separate deal for that as well elsewhere. Retro Doc Gary Akers reminds us we're still missing. This is unbelievable. We're like 5 weeks into the season, still missing those audience appreciation index figures. Yeah, where have they gone, everybody? Where have they gone?
Is this normal, Simon? Is this normal?
No, of course it isn't normal.
No.
Matt, it's the first time it's ever happened that the audience appreciation index hasn't been released.
Why are we getting the 7+4? Why are we not getting the 7s as well? Because we always used to get the 7s first, didn't we? Is that right?
Though that they are floating around as well, but I think there's only there's only so many statistics that we can take. Psychic.
Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, Psychic Beat says, I think a lot of people are waiting until someone tells them the last episode was good.
Yeah.
And you should watch it, and maybe then they will. Kind of like you were saying to me off air, Charlotte, about what your brother's doing with the current Star Wars show.
Yeah.
Because this is the model of delivery of these shows now, particularly internationally, is that people are either there and they'll be there week in, week out, or they do kind of wait for the entire series to be there so they can binge it, or they add it to the growing list. I've got a list here on my Amazon of all these shows that I'll get around to. Same with Netflix. And obviously, not for us, we're dedicated fans, but the general people who use those platforms, they'll just add it to the list.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are relying on fandom reaction now to a series in general to be like the marker to whether I'm going to bother watching it. And here's another factor which I've been thinking of a bit to do these figures. Traditionally, when a Doctor premieres, when a Doctor starts, their first series tends to be where they get the most eyes on them. It tends to be, not obviously, this is not a strict rule completely, but it's your first series tends to be when a lot of the fandom will say, right, I'll give you a series. I'll watch you for your first series, and then I'll decide whether I want to carry on watching.
Yeah.
So if
I do that
this
too.
is what Shooty's getting now for his first series, imagine what series 2 figures are going to be like. That's what I've had in the back of my head. Because also think about it, there's going to be naturally a drop. There's going to be that gap, which we always get between series 2 actually being on TV. So people will have time to find other shows or to think about these episodes more. And I think if this is the best they can do so far, and what on earth are they going to get for series 2?
It seems to me pretty clear that part of the reason why people are staying away, because those ratings at the end of last year were pretty good. Part of it has to be that they can't take to the lead actor. I know it's still early days, sort of, but early days is still nearly the end of an entire first season. So, early days or not, they're off screen in a couple of weeks. They should have probably considered that before they put the show together. And having a big chunk of the season where the Doctor's barely in it, just as Matthew Pounder says, not a wise move. Not a wise move, John.
No, I mean, again, I don't know the intricacies of what's gone on. I know, Ian, we talked about it the other day, didn't we? But I just don't. The production side of it, it does seem like to me there's an element of incompetence to it, of how they enabled this to happen. You've got 8 episodes and he's barely in 2 of them. It doesn't get your audience, what you've got left of it at the moment, invested in that character. In a 13-week run, it's particularly if the 2 lighter episodes, and I wouldn't count Dot and Bubble as a Dr. Light episode as such. That would probably be unfair. But if you follow 73 Yards with an episode where his screen time is limited, I think is the best word, then I think that was a very foolish thing to do. And I do wonder, looking back on some of these episodes, because I'm starting to think that they're happening out of order, that this wasn't the order we were meant to see them in because of things the characters are saying to one another. So I'm thinking of somebody dicked around with the running order, and these 2 episodes have just happened to end up running one after the other. And when I say someone, I mean Disney Plus, everybody. And I do believe that getting involved with Disney Plus in any way, shape or form, and the Disney machine in any way, publicity-wise, could have been a major balls up.
Yeah. But we said this, months ago, Dan, a year ago, whenever it was that it was announced that Disney Plus were doing it, and at the time it was all claimed, oh no, it's just a distribution deal, and it was obvious that it wasn't going to be just a distribution deal. They weren't just going to take these episodes and stick them on their screens. It was obvious, and so this is no surprise to me or I think anybody else whatsoever. But what I find remarkable, as Charlotte has said, is that they're taking risks with these episodes. It's crackers with only 8 episodes to take risks by making them political, by making them Doctor Light episodes, whether they're truly Doctor Light or whether the Doctor just isn't central to them. It's a risk, and you just can't afford to do that. You've just got to.
They could barely. Let's be honest. They could barely get away with one Doctor Light episode in a run of 13 before, way back during the. So to do potentially to the naked eye, say 2 for argument's sake. In an 8-episode season, when the show hasn't been on for 2.5 years, it's fucking lunacy. Quite honestly.
The big difference as well is when you talk about those seasons, we were all invested in those characters.
Yes,
so the Doctor wasn't in it for one. The audience hung around and went, "Okay, we'll watch this because we're loving this series." There's no investment in this.
Well, let's play devil's advocate and look on the upside a little bit. After Boom was probably the best received of the episodes, generally speaking. After Boom, that was quite a good showcase for Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor. He got lots of screen time, and there was lots of sort of Doctorish kind of moments where, I said last week on the show that I believe if he'd have had that episode a year or 2 into his run, it would have been a bit better because he would have inhabited the character a lot more fully. But that was a decent showcase for him in it. So if anybody watched Boom, thought, yes, I get it, I like this guy now, and they come back next week and he's nowhere to be seen. You see what I'm saying? And then the following week, it's limited screen time. I don't know. I think this is a gamble that any show would be very silly to make, and a show that's sort of on the cusp, if not of cancellation, then of insignificance.
Granted, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Irrelevance. I think it's on the cusp of irrelevance, Matt. And that's not healthy in some ways, that's worse for a show like Doctor Who. The rating is going down. If no one gives a toss, it's far, far worse. Things are going to continue this weekend. The agony continues.
I know that I gave this series a chance, and I'm going to see it through to the end of season 1.
You brave man.
But they're not getting me back next year.
I've heard a lot of people say that. They're not coming back for series 2.
Who knows? Maybe a balls out finale will actually be careful what you say about this show. A balls out finale could bring you back around. Yes. So they're coming to this weekend. Yes, this weekend. What is it? It's episode 6. It's called Rogue. So last week it was all about Black Mirror, if you remember. And that was confirmed by Russell T Davies that it was kind of based on Black Mirror, kind of. Dot and Bubble. Just a week on. Here we are again. So apparently the hugely popular Netflix show Bridgerton has inspired Rogue, if not the story, then in the way that it's presented. It's even mentioned on screen. We've seen that in the trailer. This episode airs on BBC One again this Saturday from the slightly earlier time of 6:45. Again, silly time slot. It's not gonna sink or swim the show, but it's a silly time slot. It hits the iPLAYER at midnight, just as Disney Plus premieres the episode globally. And this is the blurb here over at the iPLAYER. The Doctor and Ruby land in 1813, where guests at a Duchess's party are being murdered. Oh, very Black Orchid. And the mysterious bounty hunter called Rogue is about to change the Doctor's life forever. Dramatic sting. So this one's written by Kate Herron and Bryony Redman. Not many writing credits to their names. It seems like they caught the showrunner's eye when they were on the creative team of Marvel's Loki series. That was on just a couple of years ago. Neither of them were actual writers of that. So one was a director and the other one, I think, was in charge of props or something. Made the tea. I don't know exactly what was going on there. It seems a little strange, and anybody who watched Loki will tell you, that show was a pile of shit.
Yeah.
Any Loki fans on the panel? Pretty bloody awful, wasn't it?
It's just flashy effects, was it? It looked beautiful, but it was just nothing happened in it.
So what has Russell seen in this and in those two writers but not writers to think, yep, those are the names, those are the people I'm going to pick. He's got Moffat on the bench already, somebody you can trust. But if you're going to pick some wild cards, Matt, you'd think they'd pick somebody who was a proper writer with a bit of a track record when you've got just 8 episodes.
I think as also in a previous interview he'd been critical of the writers for
He had.
liking. So you know, obviously someone's been in his ear hole to go, well, you'll need these people, and you know, they fit our quota.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you can tell from the red hair or whatever they got, the purple hair or whatever, what sort of people they are. So yeah.
Couple of box tickers, I think they call them, John. Box tickers.
Yeah, they are, and Matt's right, because you never ever see announced a very talented writer from a particular side of the fence, do you? It's always one way now.
Not
and that's
anymore.
a shame. Yeah, and that's the only way you can write good stories, and you can tell good stories. You know, there's got to be a balance that the two sides come together and they create tension. They create
this
something
is the
good.
reason why everything's falling apart right now.
Yeah,
is because
absolutely.
Look, the fact of the matter is they just don't have anyone with the intelligence and the experience to do something like this. They're just hiring people because of their color of their skin or their gender. It's ridiculous, and
I think
it's got to stop.
We have word. Obviously, the next series is just 8 episodes again, Simon. Russell T Davies has said in Doctor Who magazine that there will be 4 new writers other than him on that second season.
Too little, too late, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's.
Could be.
I think so because as Charlotte says, if series 1 doesn't set the world on fire, nobody's going to be interested to come back for series 2. The novelty by then has worn off of a new Doctor.
Yeah.
So you at most you're going to have, unless it absolutely blows the show out of the water in quality and suddenly gets a massive word of mouth, people are not going to come back for it. And it's almost, I think it's probably, by the looks of it, it's a foregone conclusion that this is going to have some sort of gay relationship in it between the Doctor and whatever the character is on the left, and so I'm just so glad I've at this point bailed, because that would make me really angry to see some sort of gay relationship.
On one hand,
the thing is to return to this sort of thing for next year is the only change is the companion. That's it. That's what they're hoping that people will be brought back in for the next season.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder how it's all going to hang together. I mean, from the outside, looking at what publicity pictures we have for this episode, this does look like, again, part of the Doctor Who puzzle that they're fitting into place. Ian, you know, we've had the sort of the quirky episode. We've had the celebrity historical. We've had the high concept sci-fi. We've had the spooky one. We've had the dystopia one. Now we've got the period drama with a dice of sci-fi. The costumes look fantastic. The locations look tremendous. But yeah, there's something about this. I mean, we saw some pictures from this. I think last summer they were filming it. It looks sumptuous. It looks beautiful, and yet, you know, all that's just window dressing, isn't it? It's what the thrust of the drama is about, and I hate to say this, what the episode is going to say to us. Will it be drizzled in ideology? I can't blame people for wondering that when they press play, Ian.
Sorry. I'm not interested. This is not Doctor Who. You know, it's not
I think that the problem
doesn't
is,
look like it, does it?
I think the problem they're going to have.
I think that's unfair. I think that man looks like the Doctor, the bloke on the left. In all seriousness, you know, I do like Ncuti Gatwa. I think he's getting some things right, and I do think he looks like the Doctor there, sort of on the right, apart from the dagger eyes. What's that about? I haven't. Yeah, maybe. Okay.
I can't comment. I haven't seen any of the episodes, so I can't comment really. But the clips I have seen on YouTube, it's abomination. This shouldn't not be on
An abomination. The publicity pictures are fantastic. So the guy on the left, that's Jonathon Groff. He's a 39-year-old actor from Pennsylvania. I'm guessing that Russell is a pretty big fan of his too. We're told he's going to have a big impact on the Doctor's life. Here we go again. Here's the hyperbole, Simon. The spookiest ever, the scariest ever. Big impact. I think you're right, Simon. We have an inkling about where that could go, and it's casting a bit of a cloud over the episode. More identity politics, and that's a pity because I think episodes like this can be a lot of fun, particularly when they've got a lot of monsters in them. Jonathon Groff, I don't really know who he is, but he seems like a nice fella. Apparently, he's been in Glee, which I didn't watch. Mindhunter, the David Fincher show, which apparently was brilliant, and I've never watched. He was in Hamilton, whatever that is, and but I do recognise him from the Frozen movie. He voices one of the characters in that, and the Frozen movies. Sorry, because there's two of them. You know, that's a bit of a classic. So this man has form. He's got a track record, and he does. I suppose there are some people out there who might have heard of him. Certainly heard him. To me, he's next to nobody, but that doesn't really matter if he comes into the show and sort of swings for the back fence and has fun.
He runs around in the same circles as Russell T Davies. Let's just say that, and Ncuti Gatwa. So, you know, they all belong together. So,
yeah,
and I'm done.
I think that's the problem with this episode so far, marketing-wise, because I agree with you. You've got brilliant costumes. You've got a really good historical setting, Regency. It looks like you could have like the mystery factor and the sort of intrigue, like that's traditionally part of that whole, you're writing either it's Jane Austen or Bridgerton, if that's the more current example. You should be focusing on that. What has all the marketing been focusing on for this episode? Ncuti and Jonathon basically giving each other the eyes.
They're both activists.
But that's my
maybe
point.
That's the whole point, Charlotte. Maybe that's what the episode's about.
Well,
and that's what we're scared about.
Once again, risks. They're taking a risk. They're instead of marketing the stuff which is more general audience in this episode, they are just focusing on, like I said, those two giving each other the eyes. Like in any minute, they're going to go to a room to have some quiet time together. Like, that's
quiet time.
Super John.
I mean? That's what
we know. I don't think it'd be that quiet. Super John in the live chat says, "Not even Gatwa's fan following." This is something I hadn't considered. Thank you for that comment, John. We were told about this because Ncuti Gatwa has millions of people that follow him on Instagram, and if you remember when he was cast, there was a narrative out there that all of these people were going to go to Doctor Who, we're going to watch it. They haven't, have they?
All of the viewers of Sex Education were all going to come flooding in, weren't they? He was going to bring in a whole new audience, wasn't he? That's what Gatwa was going to do.
Because this is a controversial thing. It's not the real world. And it's like me on Twitter. I've got about 100 and something followers, but they're all sex bots. You know, they don't come on 2040 and follow me. You know.
Domgo asks, "What Doctor Who fan likes Bridgerton? Where's the crossover?" I don't know. I think there are Doctor Who fans who like Bridgerton. It's a very, very popular show, but I think the crossover there, the fun can come in the pastiche of something like that. I think Doctor Who's done that before. What Doctor Who fan watched Big Brother when Doctor Who went there in 2005? So I think it depends on the story and the tone of it. I think if you're spoofing something,
from what I've seen of Bridgerton, it's highly sexualized, and yes. I've literally turned it all off because it just does not interest me as a Doctor Who fan anyway.
No, I have seen it, but not of my own free will. Let's put it that way.
You know
the influence of women in my life.
I'd watch that crap.
I just want brilliant knockout monsters. You know, that's what I want. I
want
really
Doctor Who, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Knockout monsters when you've got a Broadway star like Jonathon Groff here. Bloody hell, John, you're difficult to please.
I know. I'm sorry.
Well, this again is where it goes back to Dot and Bubble. Dot and Bubble might have been a good Doctor Who story if they hadn't ruined it yet again with all the identity politics. Might have been a decent Doctor Who story. They just can't help themselves.
It was all the way through it. It was all the way through it. That's the weird thing.
And this is what worries me with this one. Just do a good Doctor Who story. with with some monsters, as John says, and some laser guns, that and spaceships. That's all we actually want. That's what we're tuning in for. Not Bridgerton. I
see, now you've said that, Simon, I actually fear the worst about what question he's asked him for him to gesture like that.
I can imagine.
Look, it's not all bad. Let's look at the upsides. Indira Varma is in this one too. You may remember her as Susie Costello in a couple of episodes of Torchwood way back in season 1 in 2006. She's playing the Duchess, sort of this year's pick of could she be the Rani or not. Indira's been a steady presence on screens for 20 years, movies and TV, A Game of Thrones, Kenobi, and The Quatermass Experiment with David Tennant and Mark Gatiss, to name just a couple. But she's been in so much stuff. I've got a massive crush on this woman, so I'm delighted to see her there in Doctor Who. There's some of her hits there. She was in something with Idris Elba, that's Luther. Luther. I think she's a regular in that as well. So this is somebody who you will recognise from various things here and there. And she's always good, Ian. She's always good. This is the kind of person they should be getting. They should be getting in Doctor Who. As for Jonathon Groff himself, I look at this character. Whoever's going to be, I thought he was going to be playing, I don't know, Beethoven or somebody like that. I think I speculated about it last year, but he's playing whoever, this rogue, obviously that's a pseudonym of some sorts, immediately brings to mind. I mean, this is the thing, you do get the impression with this season, strangely enough, that you've seen it all before, and there are echoes of Captain Jack undoubtedly about this character. We haven't seen him speak, we don't know anything about him, but based on past experience, based on the retreads and quotes from earlier episodes, is Russell T Davies simply going back to that mould of character for a do-over? Do you think that's possible?
It doesn't seem fresh, and I thought that all the way through. I mean, taking aside what we've talked about in the last few minutes, it's just, I've said before, Doctor Who was always good at setting a trend and being out in front, but now they're doing things like going, oh look, this is like a Bridgerton episode. They're trying to insert other things from other shows into Doctor Who, and I know in the history of Doctor Who you've done it, but not as blatant and on the nose as this. And I just think people aren't buying into it. I think it's just so tired now. 2005 it was fresh. It
does feel a bit desperate to just sort of try and, it's almost like pleading. Look, if you'd like Bridgerton, just please come and try Doctor Who.
And there's another thing also, like with the Jack, you're saying that was my first thought when I saw this character in the trailer. And Jack worked, if he's going to be like a Jack, because he was such the opposite to the Ninth Doctor. Jack was the Flash, was the cheese, was the sort of American hotshot. That was what Jack was. Whereas you had Eccleston with his northern accent, he was grumpy and was a bit like, you just want no nonsense. They worked as a duo because they were absolute opposites. Shooty's Doctor seems to have more similarities to a Captain Jack.
To Jack.
So I don't know if it's going to be that dynamic, if it is a Captain Jack type character, if the dynamic's going to work this time.
Maybe they've reversed it. Maybe they've reversed it, Charlotte, and it's Rogue that's a bit like how the Doctor used to be, and maybe less flashy.
That'd be interesting. We'll have to see. But I'm saying if he's too similar to Jack, I don't know if that will work with Shooty's, the way Shooty's playing the Doctor at the moment.
If they're both like Jack, then
so I'm going to have to go.
Good night, Charlotte. Thank you again for your company. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. I like the costumes too, but I must admit I'm starting to worry. I might have to start drinking, Simon. Bloody hell!
Stop watching. You will feel much better.
You'll feel much better.
Will be over.
Put that story on instead. You'll be a lot happier.
Yeah, apparently Jonathon Groff, when he's been out publicising this, he's really talking it up. He's really keen on the show, but they've got to say that, haven't they? I'm sure he's a talented bloke. People wouldn't keep booking him if he wasn't. But I don't know. Am I supposed to be excited about this guy being in it? It's starting to wane with me. I want this episode to be great. Of course I do. I always want Doctor Who to be great, but. Again, why on earth has Russell T Davies chosen these two characters to write it. They're barely writers at all. Maybe he's rewritten most of it. I don't know. I mean, he used to rewrite everybody in his original run, apart from Stephen Moffat, funnily enough. We may not know that until he writes his next book. But the signs are sadly there that this is the one that is mined with divisive and unwarranted propaganda and identity politics. I hope I'm proven wrong, obviously, but there's nothing more certain to drive more of a family audience away than that.
And what would it take? What would it take for you to drive you away, Dan, from this? What would be the thing that would really put it over the edge for you?
Well, you're talking to somebody who emotionally bailed on Doctor Who during the Jodie Whittaker era, towards the end of her first season, and who slogged it out for the remainder solely because he's obliged to make content about it. So that's what it took. So it's being emotionally dialed out of a show or to stop watching altogether. I mean, I front a Doctor Who podcast and make Doctor Who content. I've kind of got to watch Doctor Who. So it would have to take quite a lot before I literally stop watching. But for me to emotionally disengage from it again, they're a way off. They're a way off that. I think it would take more than one really bad episode. If this is a horrendous episode on Saturday, it will take more than that, because I've enjoyed to one degree or another every episode of this season. And whilst I haven't been counting the days in between each one, think, oh great, Doctor Who on Saturday. I haven't been dreading it. I haven't been dreading pressing play. And I used to, with the Jodie Whittaker stuff, I'd do anything. I was going for 3 or 4 days after they'd been on until I watched them. I didn't care. It was just a massive chore. I don't feel like that about current Doctor Who at the moment. So that's all I can really say. Is that good enough answer? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's fine. It just it breaks my heart every time I watch a new episode, hoping that it'll be good.
Good is subjective, isn't it? What we get out of the show it can be different depending on who you are. I personally think that this is a quality production in a way that the Whittaker years weren't.
It's better production. It's the production wise, it's you can see the value on the screen, but I'm just finding.
I think I want to when I say crap. No, I disagree. I think it's generally holistically better. I think it's better in every respect. I think
as someone who never even saw the Jodie Whittaker era, I understand.
I think it's a way off the mark. I've enjoyed some of these episodes more than I've enjoyed Doctor Who. As I said, I mean, the Space Babies in particular, I love that. And there's other stuff as well. When I come to review them, I haven't enjoyed Doctor Who as much since for a good 10 years or so. But I just think there's a long way. There's a long way for it to go. Let's put it that way.
I was talking to people at work, and I was just curious to see what their views were. And again, I just went, if you've been watching Doctor Who, and they didn't say they hated it, they didn't say they liked it.
I don't know many people who are actually watching it, mate.
The most common thing I had back was, "Oh, we just forgot it was on." And when you get to that stage, that's my worry. So
I think that malaise has affected people as regards all of television at the moment. Look, at least David Tennant is in this one. It might get a bump for the 10 seconds that the 10th Doctor is back on screen.
When David Tennant was in it? Yeah, he was in it last year.
Let's take a look at the comments over here in the live chat and see what people have got to say about this. Matthew Pounder says, for me, it's not been good since season 9. See, season 9 was the one that I didn't enjoy. I watched it and liked some of it, but I felt it was somewhat lacking. I have been counting the days till the next one. Says, so he's there, Slim and Toast Crunch. He's actually counting the days to the next one, so it's working for him. Jack Thursby says they've crossed a line for me many episodes ago when they mucked about with the lore of the Doctor. Well, that was like 4.5 years ago. A different production team now, though, wasn't it? I'm not even sure how to answer that question, Matt. Or that's the one that Matt put to me a few minutes ago. Barth says Carwyn Morris. They've gone to plaid. So I'm not a fan. Got the fashion experts in as well, Simon.
Absolutely. I don't like plaid either, Carwyn.
No, I don't. YW says it's slightly better than the last era. The acting isn't cringe like the last era. I wouldn't even describe it as acting. And pure historical. I'm late to the party. Of course you are. out there in the middle of bloody nowhere. I'm late to the party again. Good to see you, mate. Drop some more comments. Let's see where you are with that. Oh, I didn't like Series 9 here. This is Fly Highland. Oh, it's all coming out of the woodwork now. They keep dangling Tennant. Careful. They keep dangling Tennant in front of the audience in a desperate attempt to make them care, says Jack Thursby. Well, it's just the thing they do with the past faces, isn't it? Every now and again. It's like, what was that one called? Vampires in Venice?
Yeah, the first.
Well, they did it then as well. I'm not going to complain too much about that. So we've got two that are out. I need the Family Fortune sound effect on the soundboard. We've got two that are to my right here. Matt Pott, who's hanging on in there, but mainly because he's made a promise to himself.
My fingernails.
And John Yordan, who's slogging out.
I always keep my promises
Too. But that's Rogue coming this weekend from Kate Herron and Bryony Redman, wasn't it? This is episode 6 of the season. Heaven knows what we're gonna get with that. What's in store? I think we may, yeah. We may need a white pill or two. What do you think? I think we should go back to him. So yes, we've been celebrating the wonderful William Russell. Thinking of him, of course, all this week, his huge contribution to Doctor Who, particularly in those early days. More of the wit and the wisdom and the memories of William Russell here. And we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Bye-bye.
Hello again. That very first story, An Unearthly Child, grabbed the imagination of the viewers. But it wasn't until the Daleks made their menacing way onto the screen that the programme picked up a massive and dedicated audience.
We'll see the Daleks' first appearance in 10 minutes, so it gives us a chance to find out how the Daleks began. So welcome again to Russell Enoch, one of the early companions, who first struggled with the Daleks way back in 1964. And also a big welcome for the companion who came top of the fans' top 10 companions list, Elizabeth Sladen. Quite an accolade, that.
Thank you. I'd like to be totally modest, but I'm absolutely delighted.
Now, what were your experiences with Daleks? Elizabeth first.
Well, I think the first time that I really remember the Daleks was with John Pertwee, and they were meant to be so totally and utterly menacing. And we were in a sand quarry, I forget where, and they had to put rails down for them because they couldn't trundle along on the sand. They weren't quite as menacing as they should be. And they had to turn a corner rather sharply. And they were coming along at a good lick, and all of a sudden they started to very slowly tip over, right into the sand.
Terribly menacing.
Very, very, very.
Russell.
Well, my story really is a more gentle story because my eldest daughter, Vanessa, had been able to watch them, the Daleks, from home, you see, and she'd become terrified, so I used to hide behind the sofa, and when the Daleks came, she disappeared, you see.
Oh, bless her.
And one day I said, well, they're really not that frightening. You must come to the studio and meet Bill, and you can meet a Dalek, you see. And so she met the Dalek, and first of all she met it with the top on, and that was very scary.
Yeah.
But then I said, could you lift the top off? And she actually sat in the Dalek. So I've got a rather charming picture at home of my daughter, who was then very young, sitting in the Dalek, in a Dalek, with Bill and myself and Caroline and...
Never frightened of Daleks again?
Never frightened again.
And here's that very picture that William Russell was talking about, or Russell Enoch was talking about there, in that clip from the BSB Doctor Who weekend all the way back in 1990. That's William Hartnell and William Russell with Russell's daughter sitting at the base of the Dalek. Look at that little face,
isn't it? That's just a brilliant photo.
Simply beautiful. A beautiful moment.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, this is just such a lovely photo, that. Really nice.
And the fact that Hartnell's in costume with the wig on and holding the cane as well. I don't know.
Yeah, he's got the curly cane there, hasn't he? Just a fantastic.
Yeah, I love this.
Yeah.
But listening, William Russell didn't give that many interviews, did he, Simon? Particularly on camera. They're quite few and far between.
No. I mean, thank goodness they did interview him for the season 2 Blu-ray box set. So it was wonderful that he's in that. And that was just a really nice interview to see him in. But no, he didn't. He really didn't give that many back in the day. I mean, I can't remember the first time he gave an interview for the Monthly. It had been going. The Monthly had been going a long old while before he finally appeared in that. So yeah, any gems he comes out with are always just beautiful. He's just a very humble man. What you see is what you get with William Russell. That's exactly how he was. Just very softly spoken, very humble.
Fantastic photo, says Ezra Goldstein. Beautiful photograph, says Stephen Braddock. And I just loved Ian, says James A. Fitzpatrick. He and Barbara were top-notch companions.
Yeah.
And Vanessa says, I didn't know his daughter was named Vanessa. That's so cool. Yeah. Cool name, Vanessa. Cool name. Lovely moments, says Richard Brooks. Yeah, lovely. Talk about lovely moments. Yeah, this is Type 40 Live, covering all things Doctor Who, both on and off screen, the past, the present, and the future. And, yeah. More moments. So fans get together. Fans get together and do what fans do all over the country, all over the world, in fact. And this last weekend, some of us descended again upon Simon's location for a summary couple of days of good food, good company, and talking more of the sort of bollocks we do on here every week, didn't we, Simon? So this is Lichfield in Staffordshire, isn't it? The seat, the Horton seat.
Yes, my house is just sort of kind of top, sort of rightish of that picture somewhere.
The one right in the middle with the spire. That's
Now, you could say, Simon, that you've only got yourself to blame because you'd had us round before, hadn't you?
I have. This is the third time we've done this. So yeah, and I keep on inviting you back. Heaven only knows why I do. But yeah, I do. I invited everybody back again, and so yeah, we had another fantastic weekend. Everybody came down to Lichfield, and the sun shone. Dan is quite correct. The sun was glorious. We ate ice creams. We drank. It was all good. We ate outside al fresco in the back garden of one of the one of the restaurants, which is actually the restaurant is just behind that roof that you can see just on the right hand side there. That's where we had late brunch on Sunday morning, isn't it? Just by the Minster, by the Minster Pool. That's the. I keep boring people with this fact. It's the only 3-spired cathedral in England. That is, and there we go. There's
3 spires. Yeah, 3 spires and 2 Charlottes.
Yeah, very good. Yep. So we had and we had Charlotte there. The whole weekend, John was there all weekend. Dan, you were there. Ian was there. It was just it was a.
This is kind of this particular picture seems like a before and after from. They get the 2 Sandys from Greece. One at the start, she's at the start, and the other one she's all in leathers at the end. There, hello, Char. There's the lovely Sarah as well. I'm not sure what. No, she's not on the toilet. We're all there as well. We can all see one another. I think she's contemplating the architecture of that beautiful location.
Yeah,
that was the live viewing we had of Orphan 55. You can see she was enjoying it.
Pictures by Ian David Deers, the Mega Geek. You favour these kind of taken when they're not looking pictures, don't you?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, because then they look natural. I mean,
yeah,
I mean,
you did. Yeah, you did some great photos this weekend. Oh, there's John.
John Yordan gets back to nature.
Yeah, that's in the park. That's just before we threw him into the pool.
Yeah.
Sorry, John, what was that?
I said Ian asked me to do a special photo and climb over the rail, but
yeah.
Quit while you're ahead. Yeah, quit while you're ahead. Yeah. It was such a sunny day, and lots of just lots of blue skies and lots of merriment. Yeah. It's important for Doctor Who fans to get together, isn't it, Ian?
It is. We actually met a fan, didn't we?
Oh, we did.
We met one of their fans.
We met it with 2 fans. We met up with David, who is a very good friend of mine, who's also a Doctor Who fan and also happens to live in Lichfield, literally just down the road from me. So we met it with David, and then we bumped into Rudolph in the. Was it
Rupert?
Rupert.
Rupert. Sorry, Rupert, if you're watching, mate.
Rupert, yeah, sorry, Rupert. Yeah, Rupert in the cathedral. We bumped into Rupert. It was rather odd actually. Ian and I were just wandering along talking about Kinder, as you do in the cathedral, and this bloke who we'd never met before, Rupert, just interrupted us and said, "Oh yeah, but Earthshock was rubbish," and it was just kind of it's just so random. That we bumped into another Doctor Who fan in the cathedral, and there's
I don't know what's more shocking, Simon, the fact that we'd bump into another Doctor Who fan in such a small location, or the fact we found a Doctor Who fan who doesn't like Earthshock.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't believe it. I did have sort of a heated 10-minute discussion with him about how he could not love Earthshock. He's the only person I've ever met that doesn't like Earthshock, and he was very, very vocal about it. He really didn't like it.
Trying to pull you away at one point, weren't we? You know.
Yeah. We were going fisticuffs.
In fact, that was the expression on my face when I heard that.
There you go. You're shocked. Such a shock.
I don't know what somebody had said to me at that point.
Look like you were singing. You weren't singing something in that hall, were you?
Just imagine, Matt, if we all rolled up in your town.
This was lunch in the church. We had lunch in the church on Saturday. The church in Lichfield has been turned into a restaurant and arts centre, the hub, and so that's where we are at that point, all having cream cheese bagels. Mostly seem to be.
I've just realised in this one, Ian, people can see that I've got a few grey hairs there at the side. You see I don't dye my hair. Lunch was fantastic, wasn't it?
Yeah, lunch was really good,
wasn't it? It was great because it was nice to meet a few of the fans. It was nice to it's always nice to meet friends. Friends.
Yeah.
It's always good meeting up with friends. We drank. We had ice cream. The sun was great.
We ate,
we got drunk. We talked about Doctor Who until the sun came down.
Yeah, we did.
We
did.
We avoided that episode that night as well. So
wondering. Yeah, on the Saturday we did not watch Doctor Who. We just talked. We talked and ate and drank. And we were still on the Saturday night. We were still up until about I think I got to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning on the Saturday. I think, wasn't it, John?
Yeah, it was 1 a.m. wasn't it? About that.
Shah is still in the live chat. She says, I had the best time. Thank you for inviting us again at Casa di Simo. And there is the lovely Shah, the Lady Charlotte, hanging out with Lenny.
Two Charlottes
with Lenny, like all the cool people do, Simon.
Yeah, and look at Lenny. He is so eyeing up the empty dishes. He had the best time. He just got so much food over the weekend. Everybody was feeding him bits of bacon, bits of ice cream, and bits of crisp. He just ate and ate and ate over the weekend. Here we go. So this is us touching grass. We all in
honour of the 15th Doctor himself.
Just look how red my head is at that point. Then Yeah,
what Pantone colour is that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You get rather burnt, didn't you, John? Because the sun was.
We've got David. David is in the live chat. It was great to meet up with the Type 40 gang. Thank you for making me so welcome. Wonderful people. It sure was us. Was that before or after the drinking?
And there is David. There's David just sort of third in from the left there in the hats. That is David. Hello, David.
Well,
people are asking.
Next time we do something like this, we'll let you guys know, and maybe you can come and meet us.
Yeah,
we do.
People are asking in the live chat. So yes, we have been speaking about a possible social, Matt. We'll give you plenty of notice. We're not quite sure when. We're not quite sure where. But if you'd like to come and do something like this, eat ice cream and talk bollocks with us, whether it's wherever we are, we can't promise it's somewhere this picturesque. But that's the plan, everybody. That's the plan. Oh, look at this, beautiful. And as always, thank you to all three of you for hosting us for that weekend. Simon, and Lenny. Such great company. We had such fun. Thank you.
That's such a cool photo of little Lenny, isn't it?
Lenny was running the show, wasn't he?
He was running the show. He was definitely in charge at the weekend. He was
walking around town, though. They're all moving out of the way. He was telling all the dogs to get lost, wouldn't he? He was the leader.
He is a vocal. If he's a vocal little chap, he is our little Lenny, and he does. And everybody in Lichfield knows him. So wherever we go, it takes us ages to get anywhere. But yeah. For anybody that's never been to Lichfield, you need to come. It's a beautiful place, and just shout if you're ever coming.
When you reach this age, these things you appreciate more. When you're a kid, you meet up with your friends. It's like it's just by the by. But when you reach to my age, which let me tell you, I'm fucking old. You appreciate these kind of things, and I honestly didn't appreciate. And thank you very much, Simon. I had a whale of a time, pal. Definitely a whale of a time.
You're very, very welcome. You're very. Yeah. It's always a pleasure, and it was. Somehow we managed to cram about 7 people in here. Poor old Ian was the only one that had to go to a friend's house to stop over.
That's all right. I had a good bed. I slept.
John had to sleep on the
sofa. Shaw says that John's head is what I'd like to call slut red. There we are. We've got official word there. Yes. So that was just a few minutes, all about us and our excursion there to meet up with Simon and his family in the beautiful location of Lichfield. We can't recommend that.
Great ice cream.
That's enough.
Great ice cream. Great ice cream.
So let us know what you think of all of that and about ice cream, as well as all the other food and drink we've talked about on this show. We've also been paying tribute to William Russell, of course we have, here at Type 40 Live, as well as looking to the future this coming weekend with that new episode 6 of the show, Rogue. My word. Now, over to the cozy corner now, where that cozy corner, the brick one, where Simon Horton, you've retrieved, haven't you, that leather-bound volume from underneath the wobbly leg of the table in that pub.
Here it is.
He's got it just in time to treat us to a few more tasty morsels, this time from the Doctor Who diary. There he is.
There we are. There's the 500-year diary. Indeed, here it is. Yep, here's the diary. So we'll open it up and we'll see what we find inside the diary this week. Because 17 new episodes were streaming. They weren't streaming. They didn't stream in those days. I've been indoctrinated. Were screening. They were screening. I do apologise.
17
new episodes back in this week, going back through the years. And one in particular that we are talking about this week, we could not pass this one by without talking about it, because it's exactly 50 years, yes, 50 big years since we said goodbye to 50 years since we said goodbye to John Pertwee and we said hello to Tom Baker in episode 6 of Planet of the Spiders. We just simply couldn't let this one go.
It would have been criminal, wouldn't it?
Fantastic.
Criminal.
It would be absolutely 50 years since Planet of the Spiders, back in 1974. And I remember this episode like it was yesterday. I was only 6 years old at the time, but I remember it so clearly. And I remember that shot on the right of where the Doctor goes into the great cave with this. It is literally like it was yesterday. It's still so clear in my mind.
That's a good drawing, isn't it? I'd like that on me on a cup or something.
Which one? The top left one?
Yeah.
So that's the
been specially commissioned, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Were they all drawn by Frank Bellamy? I've got his art book. I know he drew most of them.
Yeah, he did. He did most of them. It's a lovely piece of artwork. He did. They used to pop these in every so often. These Frank Bellamy pictures. Yeah, all praise to the great one, Crimpling Doubloon. Absolutely. Oddly, the great one that you can see on screen at the moment. That was originally they made a different puppet. For the great one, Ian Scoons designed this 5-foot big spider with red eyes, and it had a bladder in it.
5 foot.
5 foot, yeah, believe it or not, it was. And it had this bladder in to make it breathe. Barry Letts decided it was far too frightening, and instead, what they ended up using was that prop, which is the Queen Spider, which of course was voiced by Kismet Delgado, the widow of Roger Delgado. And so they reused the prop for the great one, and that is one.
It's still a big sword, isn't it?
It's a big old spider, that one. Elizabeth Sladen absolutely hated spiders. She was a real arachnophobe. And so she really wasn't happy filming this story. And it took a lot of effort to get them to put that spider onto her back at the end of part 5, beginning of part 6, which is the episode we're marking. And it was John Pertwee, apparently, that sort of finally managed to persuade her to have the spider hanging on her back. I am a massive arachnophobe. I know Shah, who's in the chat, is as well.
I love spiders.
You like them?
Yeah. I do.
Tom Orford, if he's still
save
watching,
them and put them outside. Yep.
Oh, yeah. So do I, mate. So do I. Shah is still in the live chat, and she says it's a story I used to hate because of the spiders. I adore.
When I was a kid, I was totally scared of this episode.
Yeah, so was I. Ian. Really terrified.
Why this one in particular, Ian? Was it the ominous tone? Because it isn't as funereal as Logopolis episode 4, for example, but there is a kind of overwhelming sense of disaster looming, isn't there? Like the Titanic's about to go down.
As a kid, you knew there were just puppets and stuff, but there was something about them that were really creepy. And then when it got on Liz Sladen's back, that was it for me as a kid. I was terrified, absolutely terrified.
Oh, when they're in unison and they're all going,
yeah,
like that.
Cover your eyes, buddy. Cover your eyes.
There we go. It was horrible. And it's the way when that spider falls off Sarah's back and dies, it even dies like real spiders die, with its legs all curling in, which just turns my stomach anyway, the way spiders die and their legs all curling on themselves.
It's the only episode I remember the Doctor being scared. You know what I mean? It was very traumatic as a kid, seeing your hero being scared. Do you know what I mean?
Because what he does, no, you're right, because one thing I liked as a kid, and I always grew up with it, is I talk about it before. I always look for a Doctor moment, and I love the bit at the end where he says, "I had to face my fears."
Yeah.
You know, and that for me, that helped me growing up. It's like if I was scared of something, the Doctor faced his fears. You know, so it inspired me to get over certain fears as I was growing up, and that's what the Doctor does when they write it really, really well, and portray it well, and he's great, isn't he? How many times have you said how great he is?
Remind me, Simon, who wrote this particular story?
So this was written by Robert Sloman and Barry Letts. This was about the third that they had written together as a pairing, and it was directed by Barry Letts as well. And Barry sort of directed it because as a swan song to John Pertwee, because they knew that obviously it was going to be the end of that era, and so it was going to be Barry Letts' last chance to direct, and so he did it. And he also put loads of John Pertwee's friends in there as some of the cast list. And so that this was sort of the great pairing of Robert Sloman and Barry Letts, who as I said, they'd done the Demons, they'd done the Green Death together, and Barry Letts was never credited on them because he couldn't be, because he was the producer of the show, and so he couldn't also be writing it. But don't forget as well, this story was being recorded at the exact same time that Robot was also being recorded. They were sort of double banking it. And so Liz Sladen was literally having to go between the two shoots in particular. I think it affected Nicholas Courtney a little bit as well, but in particular it affected Liz Sladen. She was literally dashing between the two slots to do the recording. And John Pertwee was apparently, understandably, was in very, very somber mood when they were making this story, and apparently he kept himself very much to himself, whereas previously he'd always been very much a jovial character, a genial character around the rehearsal rooms and in the studio. And this time apparently he just kept himself to himself. He took himself off to sort of the side and he just sat and answered fan mail because he just wasn't feeling in a particularly good mood. Bless him.
Retro.Gary Akers says in the live chat, if I saw a spider that big, I'd be facing my fear from about 1,000 feet away.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Gary. Yeah. I'm terrified of these things.
Yeah, but Matt, those spiders where you live, they're as big as them, aren't they?
Yeah, they're very similar. They are actually. We have a every summer and that we have a thing called a funnel web.
Yeah.
And they'll come out of the ground and they live in our backyard and they're wonderful. Wonderful little things that you wouldn't step on with no.
That's why I'm glad I'm here, because they
without a
don't
shoe
bite
on.
like they do where you are, mate.
No, you don't want to get the female. That's for sure.
I couldn't live in Australia. That's definite.
I'll send you the biggest one that they've ever found. It's amazing.
Isn't that costume brilliant? That Pertwee's wearing.
Absolutely
it's brilliant.
It's well, John Pertwee's just a fantastic actor, and we talked about him last week that sadly that he passed at around about this time as well. The regeneration there that this was the Brigadier's line. Well, here we go again. That was unscripted. That was ad libbed by Nicholas Courtney. Nicholas Courtney added that. Bless him. And Terence Dix was adamant that on this one that the Brigadier would watch the regeneration. He would see the regeneration because Terence Dix wanted to avoid the problems they'd had in Robot, where in Spearhead from Space, where they spent half the story trying to convince the Brigadier that it was the Doctor. So he wanted to avoid that, and this time he made sure that the Brig watched. That Barry Letts saw this story very much as a Buddhist parable. Barry Letts was a Buddhist, and so he saw this as a parable in that the Doctor must become a new man by destroying his ego. It's this thing to do with, again, the Doctor, as you said, John, facing his worst fears.
Yeah.
So the whole thing going into the cave of the Great One, that's basically going into the inner being to face your inner fears, and to destroy the ego that would prevent you doing that. And so as a result, you regenerate into a new person. And so it was all quite trippy. It was all quite that was Barry Letts to say he was a Buddhist. And that was how we saw it. And also this, let's not forget that this was the first story that we see someone other than the Doctor regenerate. Campo Rinpoche regenerates. And again, I can remember this as clear as day. I remember that regeneration.
That got voted as the worst regeneration out of all the regenerations. And
it's
that
not
really
good.
annoyed me.
It
really annoyed me because I kind of liked it because I just like the variety on all of them.
Okay. Yeah.
It's something different.
I've said before, I want regenerations lying down again. I don't want standing up. I want another lying down regeneration.
I agree totally. This one, if anything, this is just simply too quick. I think they narrowed it down. They got it working by Logopolis and Caves Androzani. But it's still, again, I just remember crying my eyes out at this as a child because I just didn't quite understand what was happening. I thought the Doctor had died. I didn't understand that he was he'd survived in a new body. It's remarkable that I saw a lot of stories from around this time, and yet Planet of the Spiders, more than any, is the one that sticks with me. I don't know why. I can even remember the episode 1, the opening of episode 1, where all the monks are sitting around with all the chanting, bringing
Ali up or whatever.
Yeah.
It's funny how all those chants and incantations, like the one in K9 and Company, they all stay with us, don't they?
Yeah,
that's what we're doing at Simon's till 1 a.m.
Like a Eurovision of chanting.
Chanting. It's a great story. I do like the story. It's overstretched. It is overstretched. Episode 2 in particular is awful. I think that's the chase episode. It's just very self-indulgent. It doesn't work for me.
We have a couple of fans of the chase episode in the live chat here on YouTube. Some people do like it. There are people on Rumble as well seem to like it. So it's got its fans.
But by the time we're getting into the second half of the story, and they're on Metebelis 3, and some of the sets are not good, some of the effects are not good, some of the acting I won't comment on who it is, but some of the acting is not good.
Less is often more. I prefer the chase scene on the motorbikes in Delta and the Bannerman, but then again, who wouldn't?
It's got funky music,
isn't it?
It has got better music.
It's got very, very good music. Of course, we must remember this is the first story to use the word regeneration. This is the first time the Doctor regenerates as opposed to just changes his appearance. So this is where the word regeneration comes in. So that's
renewal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, again, it's going back to the whole Barry Letts thing about Buddhism. So it was Barry that came that came up with that's why we regenerate.
Well, so with the word renewal, I always think of library books when I hear that. Regeneration is a... Do you know what I mean?
Renew your license. Yeah.
We're so used to the word regeneration now, but when you stop and think about it, regeneration is actually a different thing to renewal or simply changing your face. It is a different thing. And I say we've got Barry Letts and Robert Sloan to thank for that.
I was very sad when he died. I didn't cry or anything like that, but I was very sad. And then this new doctor appeared, and I was thinking to myself, "Oh, okay, let's see what this guy does."
How
and
do you
then
think
next
I
episode,
felt we had to relive this every 6 months.
Skipping and dancing. I was like, "Who the hell is this guy?" So that's when I got upset that I was like, "Doctor Who's is it going to be a comedy now?" Do you know what I mean? But then again, obviously, I warmed to Tom Baker, didn't I? So yeah, it kind of worked out. Let's face it. But,
I mean, the first episode in this story as well. I think the Brig and the Doctor and the jokes that they play with each other. Where what is it? The Brig says, watching the belly dancer, and goes, "Oh, wonderful abdomen. I must use some of that for my men," or something like that. And then you
wouldn't get away with that now.
And then you have where he's touching the watch, isn't he? And he's talking about Brig and Doris going to the hotel for the weekend, and he goes, "Yeah, it's quite right. That's enough. Absolutely right."
Fabulous.
It's a great, and it's just a brilliant wrap up of the John Pertwee years. I do think it to me it doesn't disappoint. And there we go. So you can see on screen that is Boris the Spider, made by Matt Irvin. Boris the Spider, made by Matt Irvin, and called Boris after the Who song Boris the Spider. I've never actually heard Boris the Spider, but apparently there is a song.
It's great.
By the Who. Of course, it's by the Who. Who else would it be by?
Well, when we put together, because Lady Charlotte has requested this, when we put together the next musical episode of Type 40 Live, we will put Boris the Spider into the mix. Copyright strikes be damned. Ian, we'll throw caution to the wind. Play Boris the Spider by the Who. They're fabulous stuff, and you can use the diary. I was just thinking you could use the diary to beat Boris to death with. You know, would the diary see off a 15-foot spider, do you think?
Yeah, I think it would. It's pretty damn heavy, let me tell you that. Yeah.
Marvellous.
We don't condone pain and harm against spiders, violence against spiders, and never ever kill a spider. I always, terrified as I am of them, I always catch them and pop them outside. Don't know how I managed to do it, but I do somehow. Anyway, I say.
Yes. What else have we got?
Happy 50th birthday! I remember it like it was yesterday. To Planet of the Spiders, and that one is for Tom Alford as well. I hope you enjoyed that, Tom Alford. Anyway, so moving on, our only other entry that we're looking at this week is a goodie, because back on the 7th of June 1980, so tomorrow, 44 years ago tomorrow, The Sun, the newspaper, reported that K9 was going to be axed from the show. I know, it still brings a tear to my eye now. Again, I remember this as clearly as yesterday. So it was on the
K9 gets the boot.
Literally, this really upset me because I was a massive fan of K9, and so all the newspapers picked up on this, but The Sun was the first one to report it. Right, on the 7th of June 1980, so 44 years ago tomorrow. It was on their front page. There it is on the right-hand side. It's that story on the right. Will the cruel Beeb really kill off K9? That was one of their front page stories on Saturday.
It says underneath it, it's an article by Hilary Bonner, and it says Doctor Who's mechanical mongrel K9, Scourge of the Daleks, is facing the KO. Brilliant work.
He was a pedigree.
You couldn't make it. Well, one of the things I love is that there is a quote in this story. Of course, The Sun went and found Barbara Woodhouse and got a quote from Barbara Woodhouse, and anybody that doesn't know Barbara Woodhouse, go. Yeah, right. Well, if you don't know her, just go and Google Barbara Woodhouse. She was this mad old woman that used to do dog training on BBC television back in the 80s.
I remember her on Marmalade Atkins.
It's also there.
You remember that show?
They misspelled Tegan as well. It's Tegan. Oh, yeah, on that article.
Yeah. Well, I remember this story breaking. Obviously, I wasn't a Sun reader when I was, I wasn't long out of nappies.
Age.
I wasn't long out of nappies and rusks at this point, Matt. But I wasn't a Sun reader. I wasn't far off, come to think of it. I wasn't a Sun reader. But this story did make its way to the playground, and I was deeply upset because the Christmas before, I'd had a talking canine as a present, and it was my pride and joy. And just a few months later, we get this story broke. I was gutted.
Yeah. There'd been canine toys the previous 2 Christmases. The first one was the Dennis Fisher one, and then you're quite right, Dan, there was the Palitoy talking canine, and then sure enough, we got the announcement that Canine was going to get the boot. The Daily Mail picked up it, and they said that they were convinced it wasn't going to happen until after Christmas, so that the toy shop still had chance to sell their toys. And actually, they were 100% correct, because Canine didn't go until the new year. There he is, just about to trundle off into the sunset. On the 24th of January 1981 was when he finally left the series. So the Daily Mail were correct.
Did we find out why they decided to drop Canine? Was it because of technical?
No, well, partially it was technical because he was hard work and he did cause enormous delays and problems both in the studio and on location. But also it was Jonathon Turner again was of the opinion, and Christopher H. Bidmead were of the opinion again, the same as with the Sonic Screwdriver, that Canine was just too much of a get out of jail free card. You didn't. Why did the Doctor need to use his initiative if he could just get Canine to trundle around the corner and blast the alien to pieces? And so that was really the reasoning behind it. And the other thing was, I think, truth be told, Jonathon Turner just did not like the tin dog that we used to call him. He just didn't like him.
But didn't he ask for Canine to stay?
What's happened, Matt? What he did is this is where you actually have to take your hat off to Jonathon Turner. As much as he hated Canine and he didn't feel he was right for Doctor Who, he was the one that then got the Canine and Company spin-off made. That was totally down to him and totally down to his tenacity. So although he was clear in not wanting the tin dog in Doctor Who, he really wanted to get a show off the ground because he knew Canine was loved. And so he tried to save the day with Canine and Company. Obviously, it didn't work out. They just made the one episode. It was funny because on the 12th of July, of course, the Sun launched. There you are at the bottom of the Sun story. You can see the little "Save Him" headline, and that's because they set up this big thing. They were going to try and save Canine, and they got people writing. Back in the day, you could put an address in, and so there was no such thing as GDPR. So they put the address in of where everybody had to write to beg for Canine to be saved. And on the 12th of July, 1980, just a sort of a month later, they then published the story "Canine Lives." There we go, because they reckoned they had saved the day. Their campaign, "Your Super Son." There we are. Do you remember when they used to call it "Your Super Son"?
Super Soaraway Son. It was always that, wasn't it?
Soaraway Son. You're right, Dan. And so they claimed, of course, that it was their campaign that had saved the day, and Canine would live to fight another day, and he would survive. And we've got all these wonderful photos and stories of kids. Look at that one top right where those kids in a school have made their own Canine.
It says here thousands of young viewers wrote to the Sun in protest when it was reported that Canine would be cut out of key episodes in the next series. It was feared the Super Pooch was headed for the scrap heap. Great work again.
So Nathan Turner called it the Tin Dog, right? Was that the reason why they called it the Tin Dog in the when David Tennant came in?
It was a callback. Right, absolutely. That's
we have one of the plucky few one of the plucky many by the sounds of it, who saved Canine in the live chat. Will Hadcroft has revealed himself as one of the saviors of Canine.
Wow, where is this? Where does he say? I can't find it. Does he say Will, did you write?
He says, I remember in the last year of my primary school, a petition going around to save K9.
Really?
I think you will be signing this, the teacher said. You've had to wrestle.
Well done, Will. So we've got you to thank, because of course the irony of it, of course, is K9 didn't live at all. The Sun were completely utterly wrong. He did get the boot. He did get kicked out of the show. So the Sun were talking utter rubbish, as they always are, because he went. But it's difficult to say. Were the Sun talking about K9 and Company, which of course did go on, and so maybe Will, maybe you are one of the people that are responsible for us getting K9 and Company, and so for that I'm forever grateful to you. So thank you for that, Will, and anybody else that wrote into the Sun and helped save K9.
Can I ask a question? Right, so K9, it went off into the sunset, and then it ended up with Sarah Jane.
Correct.
Why wasn't K9 included in the Sarah Jane adventures then? Was it because the thing didn't work?
Oh, that's a whole other story. Yeah.
And just very, very briefly, from what we understand, that was the BBC. There seems to have possibly been a misunderstanding between the BBC and between the copyright owners of K9, well, the other copyright owners of K9, Bob Baker and Dave Martin, that the BBC seems to think that they did not want K9 back into Doctor Who, whereas Bob Baker actually told us on a show a few years ago that no, that wasn't the case at all, that he really wanted K9 back in the show, but for reasons that we don't really understand, the BBC just don't use him. All alleged. Nobody knows the truth. Come on, BBC, tell us what the actual truth is and put us right on that one, because we don't know. Is the simple answer, Ian? We don't know.
I see. Okay.
That's why you had him. Didn't he go off into a black
hole,
universal black hole or something?
Yeah. And it's a shame because
what happened to the first one though? That's the thing.
Say again, sorry, Matt.
What happened to the first one that left off with Leela?
Well, it's still on Gallifrey somewhere.
Yeah.
So if the Doctor ever goes back to Gallifrey, there is a possibility that K9 is still kicking at the K9 Mark 1 is still kicking around on Gallifrey. Yeah. Every possibility. I'd love to see K9 back. I'd absolutely love to see K9 back.
Not in this iteration.
No, not at all. Not at all.
They did do the Gallifrey series, Big Finish, and the two K9s did meet on that one. From that, I remember listening to that. I was thinking, "Oh, finally, the two K9s have met."
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that.
Which is quite funny.
Was one of them evil?
No.
One had a little goatee.
But yeah, as I say, I remember that as clear as yesterday, and I just was devastated. I remember coming home from school, and I think it might have been on John Craven's Newsround. I think I could be wrong.
Remember it being certainly on television. It was probably on Newsround.
It was something, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean, this was a big story. K9 was huge, and it was.
Don't you remember it was on News? Was it not News at 10? The BBC version of News at 10.
It was,
and finally, wasn't it? It was on.
Was it? I don't remember.
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
I definitely remember finding out about it, just being absolutely devastated.
Well, it was all sort of all right in the end. K9 did live. Eventually,
he's still kicking around, and he still keeps coming back every so often. And
maybe that kid with the funny hairstyle is Will Hillcroft, maybe.
Yeah,
holding up the K9.
Anyway, as I say, there we go. 44 years ago tomorrow, we were all crying over the loss of K9. There's the Sun for you. And that's it for your diary for the week. That's it. It's closed up.
I was just thinking, it's kind of the geeky equivalent, isn't it, of the geeky boys equivalent of when Take That split up and all those teenage girls.
It is. They should have had a phone-in line, shouldn't they, for support for those who were devastated by the loss of K9. We needed a phone line.
Maybe. I said, well, we don't need any phone lines now, do we? We can thank Simon here in person for another fabulous few entries in the Doctor Who diary.
You're Very, very. And we'll tease you, actually. We're going to tease you about next week, because next week we are going to be, as a special tribute to William Russell, we're going to be talking about the Aztecs, because actually today, exactly 60 years ago, episode 3 of the Aztecs was screening. Still one of the greatest Doctor Who stories of all time. Today, 60 years ago, episode 3 was on. And this was the one in which Ian has the fight. He has that big punch up, and that part, it's all part of the cliffhanger for episode 3. So next week, on next Thursday's show, it will be the anniversary of 60 years of episode 4 of the Aztecs. So as I say, as a tribute to William Russell, we will be talking about the Aztecs next week.
So have your memories, selected in advance. Add some comments and questions and your moments there about that top story and whatever else, whatever other gems Simon manages to tease from between the pages of the Doctor Who diary next time here on Type 40 Live. Thank you again for that one, Simon. A belter. We'll have to think about beefing that up a little bit, I think, won't we? You're watching Type 40 Live here, your live stream Doctor Who magazine show, news, views, rants, raves, banter, nostalgia, and stupid jokes. Now and again, tips about the weather and fashion and desserts, Quality Street, for example, all manner of other things here at Type 40 Live. And whilst we're at it, let's have a spot of this.
Hello, my name is Ian Levine, and I'm proud that you're listening and watching the Doctor Who Type 40 podcast here on YouTube.
Cheers, big man. As ever, we're rounding things off with a last look at the view screen. It's our regular eye into the temporal schism in search of the prettiest pictures from out there in the Whoniverse. Yes, it's the regular look at fan art and the crafty crafting world out there. So cosplay, as well as the things that people stitch together and drape over bits and bobs. They're out in the wild, all in celebration of 61 years of Doctor Who. And this time, it's all artwork celebrating our favourite science teacher, Ian Chesterton, a.k.a. William Russell, a.k.a. Russell Enoch. How confusing this all is. This one's not confusing anybody. It's very clear the affection that Ian's cartoons has for William Russell. Fabulous little cartoon he put together this week. He looks somewhat mean there. There's a touch of the Liam Neeson in Taken about him there, Ian.
Maybe he's going to have to fight that.
I think
quite
he's no nonsense, isn't he? He's going in for a punch up there. He's really miffed.
He's just been out the police cell after coming back. They've interviewed him about Susan.
I love that.
He's going to go mano a mano with a Monoptera. No protection, no gum shield. Take him out. Yeah, I do like this. I like all of Ian's work. Let's see what people think of this in the light. No nonsense, says Matthew Pounder. Just no nonsense. And fantastic, says Peter Harrington. Fist ready, suggests Melanie Weston. Investigates. Ian will throw down. It's Carwyn Morris. It looks like a spin-off.
He's very determined.
He is. And find Ian's cartoons over there on X for more of that. At the other end of the scale, we've got this one from David Burgess. A fabulous little picture he put together, all digitally manipulated there, of Ian with Barbara. You got Nelson's column in the background. So I think this must be from that final episode of The Chase when they get back to London in 1965.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. And there's Nelson's column in the background. Yeah, that's just lovely. I just love that scene at the end of The Chase when they get home. It's just beautiful.
It's marvellous, isn't it?
Maybe they're going to the church to get married.
I think they are. Do you know what? I think they're already married, actually, Ian, in that photo.
Yeah.
I think the ring is just out of shot in that photo. I think they're beaming there.
Yeah, I do like stuff like that. It's very sensitively done, isn't it, this, Matt?
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch said it looks like a wedding photo.
It does look like a wedding photo. I like to think.
Is that a monster behind them?
I think
Two eyes and a mouth.
It's the title sequence, I think.
Or is it a Monoptera? It might even be a
Space
Monoptera.
Invader.
Could be a Monoptera.
I think that's the elements of the title sequence there that are sort of blending out behind into the background.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be. Yeah.
That's lovely, says Richard Brooks. A fantastic Doctor Who artwork, says Ezra Goldstein. And Daniel's in the live chat too. Hi, Daniel, who just says it's really nice. Thank you for that, David.
I really do like to think that Jacqueline Hill and William Russell are now up there having a good old chin wag and chinking their wine glasses together. Bless them. And getting married.
Yeah. People are fascinated by that relationship. Rainey Shransky is as well. This is her picture, her tribute from a few years ago now. But I think we've all seen this sort of floating around social media. But it's an oldie, but it's a goodie. I think this is also beautifully done. Even if I think Ian looks like he's got some of David Tennant's products in his hair, but other than that, I think it's great. And having the Hartnell Doctor in the background there looking on, I love this. As if he's enjoying them enjoying an alien world.
Yeah. And Barbara's definitely got her Vidal Sassoon hair there, hasn't she? She's just stepped out of the salon with that hair.
She has.
Love that.
I really like Rainey's work. I like the simplicity of it, and I like the way she captures the characters. Barbara's cheekbones are amazing, aren't they?
I love that it's black and white as well. It just works really well in black and white.
Polo next together, says Peter Harrington. Well spotted.
60s fashion. That's what it was.
Yeah.
60s fashion? Yeah. My mother still wears them now.
The pair of them, they do look like they're on the front of one of those knitting patterns that your mom used to have. Do you remember?
What you mean used to? Mine still got hers. Oh, wow, that's great, says Retro Doc Gary Akers. Fantastic, says Ezra Goldstein. And no Susan, asks Melanie Weston. Susan wasn't in it.
No, she's gone by then.
She's long gone. They were good-looking people.
Vicky's just out of shot.
She was, yeah. The Web Planet, says Ezra Goldstein. Yeah, I like that. You can get all of Rainey's work up on Redbubble. So she sells prints and all manner of things. So go and hit her up there and tell her that Type 40 sent you. Next, it's this one. Now, you may wonder where this is from. This is Ian and Barbara again in a clinch. Soaring into the sky. Ian's wearing a rocket pack, and there's some alien beings and a space station floating behind. A curious one, a beautiful piece of artwork.
Is this the Big Finish where he did the Rocket Men audio?
It is.
Yeah.
Now, William Russell, he did record material with Big Finish, probably not as much as you'd think. But it's a good selection of stories, isn't it, John? And you're quite right. This is for the Rocket Men, written by John Dorney from about 12 years ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. It's good fun. So I do recommend people check it out. It's great, and it's good to have him back. Yeah. That's it basically.
Yeah, I do like the romance of this. I like the colours that the artist has chosen. Sadly, I don't know who this is by. But it did catch my eye. I love this when I first saw it. Wow, says Peter Harrington. Yeah, I think that deserves a wow as well. Yeah, that's certainly something, says Cinnamon Toast Crunch. A little bit different. I'm not one for shipping characters, but Ian and Barbara just makes sense, says Daniel. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
They just work so well together. They really do. I always thought that they just complemented each other beautifully. They were just superbly cast. Both of them were very, very well cast, and they just people always talk about chemistry. Do actors have chemistry on screen? And they absolutely had it in spades. It just worked for me. The relationship between Ian and Barbara, and then between all four of that original TARDIS team, it just worked beautifully. Yeah, really good.
Melanie Weston likes the space station. Yeah, who wouldn't? Daryl Joyce says captured them well. And he should know he's captured a lot very, very well, including Ian Chesterton, as played by William Russell in this fabulous piece, Daryl Joyce. Love this one from The Crusade.
Ooh, that's fantastic, isn't it? There's a bit of work.
An intense stare, again, from Ian Chesterton.
Yeah. And it reminds me as well. It's a bit of a throwback to the Lancelot, isn't it? He's very, very similar outfit.
Yeah,
and he's got the horses just outside the outside the tent as well.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Such rich colours there, Daryl. Beautifully done yet again.
Yeah.
Brilliant again, says Ezra Goldstein.
Yeah, Daryl's a cracking artist. He always comes up with the goods. Really does. Just love it. As you say, Dan, it's just so rich, so textured.
Waiting to see if Daryl's still kicking around here. Very heroic, says Matthew Pounder. That's amazing. I love Daryl's work, says Richard Brooks.
And that's interesting that you just brought up that comment from Stephen Braddock. Their relationship is very evident in the Crusaders novel. Yeah, you're right, Stephen. Actually, the Crusaders novel actually is a really, really good book. It's a really good read, and Ian and Barbara come off particularly well in it.
I think Daryl will be blushing at all the comments here in the live chat on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X. People love this, but people do love Daryl's work consistently. And we get as much of it up on the screen here as we possibly can. And finally, so William Russell was involved in Doctor Who right from the very beginning, really, as soon as they started casting. And, we think after 61 years now, you'd think we'd heard it all and seen it all about those earliest of days, every interview, every quote, every photo, every detail. But now and again, something turns up that surprises us. And last year, around the time of the 60th anniversary, Matt, there was a picture that turned up. This was taken in September of 1963, and this was during the rehearsals of the pilot episode of Doctor Who. This had never been seen before, but here it is. It features William Russell as Ian Chesterton. You've got Jacqueline Hill as Barbara Wright. You've got William Hartnell as the first Doctor. They're looking solemnly in the foreground. And this was located by Clayton Hickman. Had you ever seen this one before, Simon?
No, I've never ever seen. Have we used this before on the show? Did you say we
No.
had this? No, I was going to say I don't think I'd seen this on the show. I've never seen this before in my life. I can't even work out. I'm even wondering, whether that's from the pilot episode, because the Doctor.
Yes, it is.
It is. Sorry,
Yeah,
you probably did say. I do apologise. Yeah, because you can tell because the Doctor's costume is slightly different.
Yeah,
It's
it
not
is, isn't it?
Quite, yeah,
He's wearing a cardigan underneath a cloak there.
It's fantastic. And of course, sadly, none of these people with us anymore now. All gone.
But to think that pictures like this will still turn up after 6 decades, John.
Oh, I know. It's always lovely to see these sort of things, but just that what these characters did, to set everything going, just shows how talented they were. And he was just, again, I said it at the beginning, but he's just incredible, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a legend.
Yeah.
He is. And you are right, John. It is a testament to all four of the original lead actors that we are still here 61 years later talking about it. Because if they hadn't been what they were, we would not still be sitting here talking about it now.
Yeah, and still to this day, I don't think anyone has got the whole walking around the TARDIS description down as much as Ian did. I still think that's the definitive.
It is.
It's alive, and
it'd be nice to get that picture.
And then once he gets inside the spaceship, and it's so let me get this straight. You're saying, and off he goes. It's just it's beautiful.
Sorry, Ian. What were you saying then?
I was just saying that it'd be nice to get this colorized.
Yeah, I suppose it would. Well, it was found. It was located by Clayton Hickman, and he does a lot of research. He does a lot of restoration as well and colorization. And he did colorize this as well. Ian, we'll have a look.
Did he?
Yeah,
let's have a look.
Oh,
wonderful! Absolutely wonderful.
Go.
How does he know which? How does he know that William Hartnell's cardigan was that color though? Did he research that or did he just guess?
Clayton Hickman researches clothes of the period. He goes back to clothing catalogues and pours through pages of them. It's incredible the work he puts in. He works a lot for Mojo magazine now, colorizing pictures of bands like The Who that we mentioned earlier on, or the Stones from the 60s, the Beatles, anybody like that, colorizing black and white pictures to zhuzh them up a bit for modern magazines, just to give people a little bit of something that they never saw before. And so, yes, he does research these absolutely meticulously.
It's a good job. It's a good, really
it's
good
a
job.
very good job. He does a brilliant job with these colorizations. He really does.
He's kept the studio lights in the top right-hand corner, if you look.
Yeah, but this is what upsets me, right? Is that Doctor Who's so beloved.
Yeah.
Even the first episode, even people that have just passed away, people just love Doctor Who, and it just breaks my heart what they're doing to it now. So I thought I'd say that.
Yeah. But the only way to look at it, Ian, is that we can still enjoy this kind of stuff. This is the way I look at it.
Yeah, it doesn't affect me at all.
Yeah,
no, it doesn't
affect
really
this.
affect me, even though I'm not enjoying it, because I just look at this photo and I'm just like, yeah, I'm back there, and I could go and watch An Unearthly Child now.
It's Doctor Who.
Exactly. And so
Daryl Joyce says one photo that sums up the episode. Wonderful. It's beautifully staged. I can't believe that we had to wait 6 decades to see this.
It's quite amazing, isn't it? And it's interesting, isn't it, Dan? Because all of the dynamics are there. You've got the haughty Doctor in the foreground, so they're not even looking at them. You've got the quizzical Barbara looking at the Doctor, trying to work out what's going on. You've got the skeptical Ian, who's the scientist. Let's not forget, he's the science teacher. Just
because she is asking him a question, and Ian is listening, and you can tell that just from the look on their faces.
Yeah, you can.
Watching back the pilot recently, and you do see why they did change it, because they did go in that pilot with a much darker tone for the Doctor, didn't they?
Yeah,
and he was just dismissive of them, but they lighten him up a bit, don't they? Because in the actual broadcast episode, it's almost like he's testing them a little bit when they're asking questions, which I really love how Hartnell does that. And the looks to the camera. He just did it brilliantly.
It's still I still think that first episode is a work of absolute genius. It's one of the best pieces of television, and William Russell absolutely holds his own in it. He really, really works well. He's so watchable. I remember again so clearly, as you mentioned earlier, the Five Faces season, which I know we've talked about so many times on this show. But I remember seeing that first episode on that cold November night.
Yes, if people didn't hear me earlier on, David Mullen and others, yes, it is a rehearsal shot from the original pilot. I said earlier on when I brought it on, it is fabulous that we're still finding pictures like this from the earliest of early days of Doctor Who. I just adore this. I adore Clayton's work. You can find him over on X. He's missing in action at the moment, working on something, who knows what, but I know he's got a coffee account if you want to go and buy him a coffee, and tell him how much you appreciate his work, and tell him that Type 40 sent you too. I feel warm and fuzzy looking at this, says Peter Harrington.
Yeah, so do I. I want this on my wall. I definitely want this framing up and putting on my wall. It's lovely.
I think Clayton should put a calendar together, but it'd probably be a copyright concern of some sort, wouldn't it? Yes, those are the pretty pictures in our undergallery here at Type 40 Live. We go in search of the prettiest pictures and fabulous artists there from out there in the Doctor Who fandom. So whether it's traditional art or digital art, whether it's cosplay, whether it's crafting, we want it all up here on the view screen so we can show the Whoniverse and do our bit to push things along to your DeviantArt page, your website, your Instagram account, or your X account, wherever you show your work. If you're a fan artist, or you know a fan artist you think deserves a place on our view screen, my God, then please send them our way, or vice versa. Indeed, you've got to fill up these walls. Got to fill up these walls somehow, everybody, haven't we? Somehow.
The universe is collapsing. The only way to save it is to watch Type 40.
Yeah, and you can reach out to us through our social media, Instagram and X at Type 40 Doctor Who there, or cut out the middleman and join us in the Type 40 Facebook group. Yes, so identities of the members of the Doctor Who Facebook group for Type 40 over there their identities are kept secret. I'm not saying that all 4 of these guys are members, but you'll never know until you join up for yourself there. And we'll be discussing this weekend's brand new episode of Doctor Who, Rogue. That's by Kate Herron and Bryony Redman, isn't it? I have to keep checking that, who's writing it. That's on Disney Plus and the iPlayer from midnight UK time on Friday/Saturday, and then it's on 6:45 on BBC One there for traditional TV viewers. The dwindling few. Let's hope they can turn it around.
Well, they can always get on you, Dan.
Well, they can't. They can't really, can they? They can't. They can count on a jam tart or two. I think. You know where you are with a jam tart.
Jam tart, yes. That should be in the gallery, mate. That's just superb art. That what it is.
It is beautifully photographed, my friend. Yeah. And with jam tarts, just like us tarts, you can take pictures of them without them knowing, and it's all fine, isn't it? It's the best kind of photography.
Don't give Russell T Davies any ideas about tarts.
Ian, Simon, John, and Matt. Matt, our only real-time traveller here. So it's Friday already for you. You haven't watched the episode yet, but you've already travelled into the future. Any surprises you can tell us about there? Anything happening in the UK election?
Any flying cars, Matt? Is there any flying cars yet?
Self-lacing boots? That kind of thing?
But I'm about 5 minutes away from getting having a bit of crumpet with some honey on it. So
right. Okay. Well, you have the honey.
No, seriously,
any ideas?
Don't talk about honey. Give Shooty Gower ideas.
Yes, absolutely. Honey and crumpets. Oh no.
John, it's been a bit of blast.
Babes on it.
Yeah, it's been
as
great.
Always.
Thanks all.
Thank you for company.
Yeah,
Simon Horton, the big purple one. We've blasted through some memories. It's been a somber one. It's always somber, isn't it, when we gather together to remember departed actors, actresses, or writers.
Yeah, it's sad because Dan, you and I were only saying at the beginning of the week, there's not much happening this week, so it'll be a short Thursday show. There won't be that much to talk about, and then we were not anticipating the news that came in. Obviously, it's the last thing we would want to be talking about. But as Ian said, you have to talk about the fun times. You have to talk about the good memories. That's what it's all about.
Lots of the quotes, Ian, from the people, who worked with William Russell, have talked about his sense of humour, how playful he was when he wasn't working, and I'd like to think he would appreciate the fact that we've celebrated, we've paid tribute, we've had a few laughs as well.
He's probably looking down, smiling.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I do too. We've been celebrating and paying tribute to the life of William Russell, who played Ian Chesterton for us on screen in Doctor Who in those earliest of early days. 16 stories, was it 77 episodes, something like that? My word. Yeah, treat yourself to a rewatch over the weekend and then meet us back here next time and space for more hot takes, pet peeves, raves, or indeed rants on Type 40 Live, just a week away from the 2-part event finale of Doctor Who that's going to bring this season to a close. As always, all views are welcome here at Type 40 Live. You can hit us up in the comments section with all of that. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Check you're still subscribed, because you know what YouTube's like, and all that jazz. Drop us some comments. It's thank you for all your comments on this, all your memories too about William Russell himself, your speculation there about future episodes of Doctor Who, and joining us in a dive through the pages of the Doctor Who diary. So much fun each and every time. But our thoughts and prayers are with William Russell, and our gratitude for all of the good times, all the hours, the golden hours that we've spent watching him as Ian Chesterton on Doctor Who. We'll leave you with that thought. We always have the time if you have the space here at Type 40 Live. Speak to you all again soon. Bye-bye.